Hey, alright, it looks like I don't have all the scenes set up for... I don't even think the camera's extending to the full width. I gotta figure that out. Um, but yeah, I have like my scene set up for the live coding, but for some reason my camera wasn't working on that, so I couldn't use that. So, let me see. I just want to make sure that I have Twitch alerts ready. So I'm hearing a bunch of sounds. I have no idea what they are. Alright, and open one more window. Oh, alright. Thanks for the follow, Damon. Thank you for the host, that's... Okay. Alright, that looks normal. And open this in a new window. Now we're good to go. Yeah, welcome back, Damon. Yeah, you had a lot of good questions. Be surprised that some of the few people that all those questions might help, too. I have a bunch of auto-host, okay. Alright, so I had to recreate account, lost access to the old one. Did you? That sucks. Give the secret code to the left and right. Let's see, excuse me today. Something you could tweak in OBS, I guess. Not sure. Probably best to check after stream. Yeah, I don't know. I just think my computer's a piece of crap. There's no reason. Like, I looked at all the settings for the camera. All the settings matched up for the scene where the camera wasn't working with the scene that it was. I have no idea what I could change. No idea. I just want a new computer. Alright, I have about 20 more questions of mine, so I hope you don't mind. Not at all, Damon. Not at all. Ask away. Yeah, I actually, I gotta reach out. I'm probably gonna... I haven't actually created the meetup. I'm probably going to create that and then send out messages to everyone. But I'm pretty excited. I don't know if I want to do it because it's probably going to be in my area if it's going to be the weekend, because I don't want to travel to downtown over the weekend. But if I either want to do it like with Full Stacks, whenever I do their alumni panels or whatever, I'm able to do it right after work. That's really convenient. So it's either going to be right after work, just go to a cafe, or over the weekend just kind of doing it in my area, because I think people are willing to travel across Chicago for this. So I mean, it's just one city. Thankfully we have our transportation. I've actually been thinking about whether I want to get rid of my car or not. What industry sites and blogs do you read regularly? That's a good question. Smashing Magazine is a huge one. And one thing, Smashing Magazine, it's really good for front-end developers and designers. One thing it does is a lot of their blog posts will post resources to other platforms, other really good platforms. Usually all the resources they post, I never finish the article or reading the external resource and say, hey, this is crappy, I'm never going to trust them again. It's always a good resource, and I usually bookmark it so I can be able to give it to other people. Smashing Magazine is a really good one. There are so many others. The goal of this this mentorship thing in Chicago is to basically provide them with as many free resources as possible. So over the next couple weeks, I'm going to be building that list up, and I'll be able to give you more concrete ones. But I'd start with Smashing Magazine and all of the resources they link. It's a really good front-end blog. I watch a lot of YouTube videos as well. John Samez is really good to follow on YouTube, more for the soft skills stuff. Dev Tips, when he was hosting before he gave his channel away, I know was a really good resource as well. I gotta go back and look at free resources. Honestly, I've been using a lot of paid ones. I gotta go back to the free ones because they're just as good. It's a really good question. Damon. That's a reminder to kind of get my list built up. Absolutely, Dev. Ask anything you need. What are your thoughts on coding boot camps? Ridari, welcome, by the way. There are a few that are very, very effective at what they do and that are worth the money. There are a lot of really crappy coding boot camps that are not worth the investment. And I think coding boot camps are starting to kind of, at least, in Chicago, a lot of them are starting to fail that didn't really have a good business plan, which is unfortunate. But I think a lot of the coding boot camps that just sprouted up that are really just a scam, it's probably the harshest way to describe it. They're starting to basically shut down and give up. And then a lot of the other coding boot camps that are very strong, that have a good business plan, that are providing job opportunities that they promised for all of their students, they're making money and they're doing well. Full Stack Academy is a really good coding boot camp. Highly recommend it. But there are a lot of imposters out there. So I created a video, and feel free to look at my YouTube about it. It's probably my most popular video. I thought it was really crappy, so it's cool to see such a good response for that. But I highly recommend a highly recommended coding boot camp, such as Full Stack Academy, and there are others, if you are passionate about becoming a developer. It's a big time investment. It's stressful. Usually it requires about 60 hours a week, and so you have to potentially give up your job to do it. There are part-time programs. I just don't think they're as effective as being there in person all the time, getting comfortable working on teams, dealing with all the, just learning how to work on a team effectively without getting frustrated and pissed off at each other, being able to pair program. That was just an extreme example, but you get to that experience of working on a team and growing as an individual, working on your interpersonal skills. And when you do it part-time, you don't really get that. You don't really grow in the same way as if you were to do it full-time. So I would recommend it if you know you're passionate about coding. The coding boot camp teaches you languages you've already experimented with, you enjoy, you like the patterns of that language, you like the syntax, or you like the history of that language. It's I don't know. You've dabbled in to development, you like it, you want to do it, you just want to get a huge jump start into starting your career. You might want to, take 3 months of education, where that education might actually take you to self-learn that a full year. So it's basically to kind of quickly get you into the industry, but you don't need it. And that's the other thing to emphasize. You can teach all this that you're learning at a coding boot camp on your own. And so the worst thing you can do is go into a coding boot camp not knowing you really want to be a developer, going into it for the wrong reasons because you think you're going to make a lot of money as a developer. You think it's just a hot industry. You think getting out of your career and going into a development career is going to solve all your problems. No, you go into it if you're passionate about coding, you're passionate about solving people's problems, you want to build stuff, you want to create stuff that people are going to use. Those are all really good reasons to go into it, but experiment first before you go in. So I know that was a very elaborate answer, and I hope I answered it for you. But go in with cautious optimism. It's something I would not recommend for everyone, but it's extremely effective for certain people. So it kind of depends on your personality as well and your financial situation. But you don't need it. You can learn all this stuff on your own. All right, let me catch up a little bit. Hopefully that helped. Begins. Oh, I guess we get achievements on Twitch. I don't know what just popped up in front of me. Do you prefer to work alone or on a team? Um, that's a good question. I currently like working on a team a lot more than I like working alone. I have a huge problem working alone, and that is, it's not procrastination. I can work really hard, but I don't effectively come up with a full plan from start to finish on how to get a project, from concept to launching it and then marketing it. I don't have all those pieces yet to be effective at every step. And being on a team, I am learning so much on how to learn how to do each part of the process on my own. In the next 6 months, I'm going to continue growing. I'm getting more we have so many problems with DevOps stuff because we're switching to Google Cloud, and there are a lot of challenges that come in, and usually the software engineers deal with a lot of that, but the front-end engineers can take it upon themselves to be able to solve their own problems when DevOps issues come up. And they'll be able to, because we're kind of a smaller tech team, I'm able to participate in a lot of the UX discussions with design with the project managers. I'm growing so much on a team, whereas if I was just doing this on my own, I can grow. It's going to be a lot slower. So that's just something about me, because I have all those gaps that I need to fill in order to be very effective with getting my projects out there. Being on a team is helping me grow in those ways. So I really love being on a team. That might change down the road, but right now I really love being on a team. It's a good question, though. How would you determine if a program is a scam? That's a good question. So like a coding bootcamp, look at reviews. Course Report is a really good website to check out. And sorry, you might get like a delayed response, but I want to make sure that I answer all the questions. But you will get your question answered, I promise. So how do you figure out if a coding bootcamp is a scam? Look at Course Report. Look at the reviews. Course Report is a pretty unbiased review platform for coding bootcamps. There are other ones, but Course Report I trust. And Course Report basically gives bootcamps the opportunity to become transparent, and Course Report supports bootcamps that are more transparent about their statistics. And so even Full Stack Academy, they were boasting, 90% job, basically success rates of getting a job within 3 months, whereas really the time span is starting to extend a little bit. And Full Stack Academy chose to be very transparent, and so their percentage went down. People still got jobs. It was just a little longer than they were advertising. But that really gave Full Stack Academy a lot of credibility on Course Report. You can actually see my review for Full Stack Academy on Course Report. But I would look at the reviews. Look at the reviews. Don't trust their website. You can get information about their websites. You can get an idea of what their program entails, what you're going to learn, and so you can kind of use that own judgment. Okay, is my local area looking for all these skills that this coding bootcamp is teaching? But ask the hard questions. There are websites that will give you a list of the right questions to ask. Ask very hard questions. You're going to go through an interview process with any coding bootcamp. You're probably going to go with the coding challenge. One thing to weed out really big scams, it should be hard to get into that coding bootcamp. It really should. It doesn't necessarily need to be a lengthy process, but there need to be usually multiple interviews and coding challenges to assess that you're the right fit. And that will tell you that they really, that if you get into that coding bootcamp, you have a very high percentage or a very high chance of getting a job coming out of that coding bootcamp in the time frame that they're advertising. And so coding bootcamps that weed people out more strictly, usually by rule of thumb, are not scams. So we can get into it a little bit more. Feel free to ask more questions as well, but that's a pretty good rule of thumb. And I use that for Full Stack Academy as well. For instance, I'm looking into UC Berkeley's extension. Check if it's on Course Report. What do they say on Course Report? Oh, thanks, Steph. That's really helpful. Yeah, that's the coding bootcamp review. And if you just want to get a, sometimes I answer the question in a different way. I probably talk more about it. Keep in mind that that video was as soon as I graduated. I didn't have a job yet. I have a little bit more knowledge about the job market than I did, but I still think most of what I said in that video is pretty true. Trilogy Education is behind the program. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, if it makes a difference. I would love, look up on Course Report right now and tell me the reviews. What are their ratings? I'd love to hear about that. Why do you do web dev over like a software company shilling out lots of money? Why do you do web dev over like a software company? What do you mean by that? I'm sorry, I don't really understand the question. Why don't I get into business to make a lot more money? Get into business in a software company? I love being a developer. I like building stuff. I like creating stuff. I'm really passionate about coding. So that's a good question. I might not. I couldn't see myself really diving heavy into project management anytime soon, or I don't even know if I have the experience to do what our project managers do. I have way more coding experience, but it's more UX and business and interpersonal stuff. But I like coding. That's why I do what I do. Hey, Ponage. I'm currently in my first year at University for Computer Science. I have to develop a social media app. Any tips, advice? I'm using a bootcamp as I am not very good at design, although I'm great at the back end of things. All right, cool. So it sounds like you probably have a lot of your problems solved on the back end. For front end, so it sounds like you're trying to get more comfortable with the front end. Look at different design patterns. You can find different articles on how to cover the user experience portion of your app, but really learning user experience really teaches you to ask yourself the right questions. Who is using the app? Who's my audience? What are my competitors doing? What's effective for them? What even makes me unique? And so coming up with that allows you to come up with the content of your website. So before you even start thinking about the design, come up with the content. What information do you need to deliver to your user? Because you don't really know your user yet, but you try to imagine who your user is. And what content needs to be delivered. Now, what design can I create to best deliver that content? I wouldn't focus so much on design patterns and expecting yourself to come up with this really pretty design. Coming up with a basic layout structure to once you know, okay, for the social media, what was it? It was a social media app. Maybe you're delivering statistics, so maybe showing all the statistics that can help. I don't know, is it like social media for marketing, help them market their business? Just, I guess, asking yourself all those questions and not getting too focused on making your design super pretty when you're not comfortable with design yet is really what your focus should be. I know it's not really good, really helpful advice, but try not to focus on coming up with the perfect design for that. Just learn enough HTML and CSS to deliver that content, because there are months and years of learning to get more comfortable with UI and design. So I guess my strategy would be learn HTML, learn CSS, get your content up. You probably have all the back end figured out, which is great. So get your content up, get it delivered, and don't worry so much about it being super pretty. Hey, Slayer. Welcome back. Oh, yep, it did. Webcam froze. You guys can still hear me, right? Yep. Oh, that's a nice face too for it to freeze on. Let's deactivate this. Thank you. Just let me know if it freezes again. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I wanted a new computer. Awesome. Thanks, Steph. Yeah, I got that right away. What are a few of your favorite development tools and why? I'm trying to see if you use any of the tools I use in-house for my development and design process. Sure. So at work I use a little bit different tools, but my favorite tools for using for like my Node full stack projects, for the user experience stuff, I'm really trying to spend a little bit more time just asking myself a bunch of questions to come up with the content. And then when I come up with the content, I find that most of my front end is already decided, like the strategy behind it. I usually have that down, and then I use Sketch to mock up the website. I usually do a mobile version, a desktop version, and then I'll usually tackle the heart. So I'm basically using Google Docs for the UX stuff. Sometimes I'll even just draw it on paper. Sketch for the mock-ups, and then I'll use Node for kind of my back end and my platform, GitHub for my repository, VS Code for my code editor, and then I start using, like, I use Mocha and Chai for my tests. Basically for my back end tests I use Express for the routing. For my back-end routing, I use React for interactive apps. Otherwise, I use Nunjux for the templating. And then I use Sass for the CSS preprocessor. I could keep like spitting out other technologies that I've used, but I would say I consistently use those on projects going forward, and I've been using those for the last few months. I'm really trying to utilize all of those. So that's kind of what I use. And then I use, God, what is it called? What do I launch it on? Heroku app. Really easy to launch it. It basically takes your GitHub repository and builds everything automatically, which is really neat, and it's free. And so when you get a app first launch, Heroku app is a really good thing to launch it on. Until you start getting a little bit of a user base, then you can convert it over to a VPS or something like that. That's pretty much my setup and my process. And I know you guys might feel like your questions are not getting answered for a while, but they will get answered, I promise. You guys have a lot of good questions. I didn't expect this many questions, so thank you. Haven't gotten much coding done today. Bad headache. Slayer, I woke up with a really bad headache today. That sucks. Sorry to hear that. It went away, but that headache, it definitely hit me hard. It hit me hard enough, I'm like, I really don't want to stream today. But hope it gets better. His Holt. Alright. What makes for a good home office when developing from home? Quiet. Isolation. Nothing fancy. I think people spend too much time with their computer and their hardware. I've had people ask so many questions on, what computer should I buy? I really want to become a good web developer. You can do it on less than a $300 Chromebook and just log into a VPS. Don't spend a lot on your hardware. For a home office, cheap printer. I have a couple filing cabinets. I wouldn't invest much, but the quietness, I think, for me, is what's really helpful. I usually just have a MacBook and I just start coding. I have a couple of extra monitors. I like 2 extra monitors when I'm coding, but you really only need one. I think just doing coding on one laptop is kind of a pain in the butt, but you don't need to spend all this extra money. If you have an extra monitor laying around, I would probably hook it up. But that's all I have for my home office. This is my home office. No way to possibly predict the accurately but super roughly ballpark for an entry-level wage for devs coming out of boot camps with limited experience. Radari, it depends on your area. Chicago, I would probably say for a UI engineer position, it was around 74,000. I think software engineer positions a little bit higher than that. It depends on the boot camp. I think a UI UX position pays a little bit less. I think a UI engineering position pays a little bit more. It's all, UI engineer, web development, it's the same job Usually you're focusing a little bit more on the architecture with the engineering position, but like a front-end web developer, see, this is in Chicago, and this is what I know well. I would argue for a software engineer, you should be getting paid at least $60,000 starting out, coming out of a boot camp. In a big city, probably more. I think software engineers, I would have probably aimed higher than my salary. Front-end web developers, I know I'm going back and forth between Chicago and like smaller cities, so but I guess front-end web developers, I would have accepted a job. I don't know if I would have, but like at least $60,000 in Chicago. I think you should be getting paid at least $60,000 for any development position in Chicago. Probably a little bit less in your local area. It's hard to say. It definitely depends locally, but I know the range that I was aiming for is basically between $65,000 and $85,000 when I got out of the boot camp, and I got it. So it's probably going to be a little bit less out of a metropolitan, though. He likes C. I thought JavaScript. I like JavaScript. Yeah, I think that was sarcasm. Do you work from home often, Dev? That's Dev's question. There you go. Me, all right, so there's the camera freeze. Standing desk, treadmill, standing mat, or one of those dynamic standing platforms. I forget what they're called. Some people like those. I can never get super comfortable with them. I did see your question. It's just taking me a little while, guys. Camera froze. Yep. Like it's cold. Frozen cold. Alright, now I'm catching up a little bit. Alright, let me know if I missed your questions. Hey, Dex. How's it going? Ooh, wow, I'm behind. Alright, there we go. No, I'm catching up. I know most of HTML. I need to learn about CSS, and I know some PHP and MySQL. So what, Espionage, what position do you want to go for? Are you going for a front-end or back-end position? We're full stack. How to be a better dev, tools, get better tools. I don't, No, I think people focus too much on the tools. I would disagree with that. Get comfortable with the languages. Get comfortable with actually pushing out projects. Don't focus on the tools. What are a few sites you admire and why from a web dev perspective? Oh, from a web dev, I like Smashing Magazine. I like Treehouse. Treehouse kind of has a flat design, but they do flat design really well. And it really is websites that I use. I've seen a lot of neat one-page apps. What I have been focusing a lot on is learning how to build a really effective landing page. That's probably one of the primary things I do at my job, because they make our company a lot of money the more effective we can make them. I can't think of any specific websites. Hold on. Oh. I was wondering what those notifications were. I really can't think of any specific websites. I have them all bookmarked. I really do. Froggy. What is it? Froggy Flexbox? Flexbox Froggy. Really, really cool web development project. Really effective at teaching you Flexbox. And it shows you what you can do with building a kind of a learning game with, I don't know what the back end for that is, if it even has a back end. But Flexbox Froggy is pretty cool. I like neat projects. I like creative projects that teach people how to learn. I like, there's something called like Flexbox Tower Defense. I don't know if it's called exactly that, but it's a really cool project that I think it has like, it detects collision for like, it's a tower defense game that detects collision and teaches you how to use Flexbox to position your towers effectively. Like, it's not super difficult in the game sense, but the project is so creative, and it really teaches you some, like with basic CSS, the kind of things you can create that are interactive. So I love websites that really kind of gamify whether it is a game or not, it gamifies the experience, and it really quickly rewards the users. I really love websites that focus on that. Hold on. Oh, you guys requested a song. I'm like, I hear something. Where do I hear it? All right, you guys requested a song. I forgot I had those activated. Let me know if the song gets in the way. Can you guys can probably hear that song, can't you? Hold up. Oh, you guys requested a song. I'm like, you guys can't hear that song. Huh. Alright, only I can hear it. Yeah, someone requested a song. It's playing. I'm kind of surprised you guys can't hear it. That's alright, though. I've not tried the new Firefox. Do you find any particular language or technologies that are part of the tech stack at your job intimidating? Damon, yeah, I do. Python's kind of a new experience for me. Messing with a lot of the tests. Let me shut this off because you guys can't even hear it. Python's a new experience. And so I've been getting more comfortable with the Django, but anytime I have to touch Python, it's I really need to spend some time learning it. How do I go back? No, I don't know how to go back. No, there it is. Okay, I went back to my events. I think DevOps stuff is really tricky. Getting comfortable with Ansible and Crucible. I don't quite understand Docker just yet. And usually when the back end needs to rebuild certain things, I literally can start work and then have no idea why I'm getting the error I get, and it's usually a Docker issue. So Docker's something that is a little bit intimidating just because I haven't really put the time into getting to know it thoroughly, and I need to really build it with a personal project to probably do that. So Docker is kind of that's something I need to invest time in, so I guess you could say that's intimidating. Python, building custom views and filters, because we used a Django, that can be a little bit intimidating. I'm starting to get more comfortable with unit tests, but at first that was a little bit intimidating until I finally, it's like every time I want to learn something, do it for a personal project, then it becomes less intimidating, I grow, I get past it. But until I do it for a personal project, I usually take a lot longer to get past that plateau. Anything else? You know, I'm going to be diving into WordPress soon. I've never really done WordPress development. That's going to be a new experience. I might get back into PHP a little bit. But that's, you know, I really have no idea. I'm kind of wondering when they're going to throw me into that. I think it's going to be first of the year, pretty shortly after, because I think the work we outsourced is going to get tossed to the front end to maintain. So that's kind of something coming up that I'm going to have to deal with. And again, everyone that's new to the channel, sorry if I get to you a little bit late, but your question will be answered, I promise. It's a really, obviously, heavily focused chat stream. But feel free to ask any questions you have. If you're trying to grow as a developer, you have questions, ask away. Do you find, let's see, hey, Cut Duck, welcome. It's one for Grid, CSS Grid Gardens. I don't think I've ever visited that one. Learning Linux and Unix tools, I've improved tenfold. moved away from just web dev to more a generalist approach. Yeah, I guess it depends on the path you want to focus on, Atmospheric. I wouldn't recommend, I think having a basic, that's a good point, having a basic familiarity of the command line. I know it can be kind of scary for front-end developers, but it does help. Having a basic familiarity with source control and just getting comfortable with Git is helpful. I think it's always helpful to get more comfortable with the command line, but you need to draw a line in the sand until that's going to say, okay, when I start, when I am dealing with setting up all the configuration for Docker for our business and stuff like that, I'm starting to get into more of a software engineering role, which is fine if that's the route you want to go, but it takes time to learn that. It does. It takes time to get comfortable with it and debug issues that come up, and when you're trying to integrate Docker and kind of get those builds automatically building without failing, and we get so many weird errors. It's just, that I know, like software engineers that are comfortable, that have been doing this for a while at our business, they'll sometimes spend half of a day up to we just converted over to Google Cloud, and they're spending days debugging weird issues. You could spend a lot, and they know that stuff. They're pretty comfortable with it. So if you want to grow as a front-end developer, I would argue that there's a line in that sand that you need to say, okay, I will eventually learn more command line stuff, but I need to get more comfortable with CSS or JavaScript or the giant code base that takes months and months and months to learn. So you got to be careful where your time goes. Am I working at a company or a freelancer? I am working at a company. I'm a UI engineer for a healthcare company. We do a lot of diagnostic testing. SHB, welcome back. How's it going? Tabs or spaces? Both. That's my answer now to that question all the time. I do tabs. What about you, Damon? Tabs or spaces? You're in the in real life section when you are going to start. When am I going to start dancing for tips? Do guys get paid for that, or is it just the girls on Twitch? This is what I meant by learning the tools, but again, only if you want to take the generalist approach. Sure, that makes sense. There's a good book by Brett Skellin, Effective Python, which is kind of like Kyle Simpson's JS series. Demonstrates the Pythonic way of doing things and some advanced language features. That's interesting, 8totes. I wonder if I probably need more of a basic tutorial for Python. Because when I start diving into Python, I'm never really going to use it for my job. We have software engineers and we have UI. And there's not really a path to become a full stack developer at this company. I think this company is pretty comfortable at separating those roles. And they have their own reasons for it. So my growth and where I can provide the most value comes from getting really comfortable with the UX side of things. Being able to suggest things, effective strategies to project managers and design that will make us more money. And so UX is, it's a position of its own. And so diving further into that over the coming months, I think is going to make me, I talked to my boss about it, but he really loves the idea of focusing on UX. I even brought it up to him. I'm like, should I get more comfortable with Python? Get a little bit comfortable with the back end things? It would get me comfortable with building custom filters. And he mentioned we barely do any of that. So he really wanted me to get comfortable with the UX stuff. So that's what I'm diving into. Pretty front end heavy role. It's funny because if I do front end at work, I'm going to do back end at home. If I do back end at work, I'm going to do front end at home. Like I made that decision a long time ago and pretty much following suit with it. Regardless of a college degree, coding camp, or self-taught, what valuable advice will you give to those, mouse is in the way, trying to break into the web dev industry? Be persistent. Be comfortable with getting rejected. So we talked about on the YouTube stream applying early and often to get that constant feedback. and it kind of gives you, because you don't really ever know how much is enough to get a job until you get that job. And a lot of people get discouraged, and they don't get calls back from companies. And I told you this as well. Like, there were many times that I was discouraged. Before I even went to the coding boot camp, I probably knew enough to get the position I have before I went to the coding boot camp. And then I didn't really think I knew enough before the coding boot camp, so I went to coding boot camp. I got out of it. I was more confident, but I still had that thought in the back of my head, am I good enough? And that confidence would have been instilled in me a lot sooner if I would have applied very often and gotten that feedback from employers. So when I started applying to many, many jobs when I got out, I started realizing I was weak in algorithms, data structures and algorithms, which bigger companies were looking for. Like as a Salesforce position was one of the first positions I applied to. They loved me in the interview, but I did one of their online algorithm challenges and failed it, bombed it completely. So I was really weak in that. So if I wanted a software engineering position, some people will give project-based tests, some people will give algorithms. So it all depends on the company, but I was weak with algorithms. I didn't really have a lot of good design skills. Really, I was definitely good enough with React and CSS. I was good with JavaScript and CSS. That was my strength. And I didn't discover that until I started getting rejected and getting better feedback for certain things. So apply often, apply early, be persistent, get comfortable with rejection, keep pushing forward, keep building projects. The second piece of advice that I usually give people to full stack, it's really cool because people will pull me aside after I get done with the alumni panel and they'll ask a bunch of front-end questions. I don't know why they didn't ask during the alumni panel, but they asked afterwards. Get comfortable with building a bunch of crappy projects that you feel like no one's going to care about, that employers aren't going to care about. Don't build to build perfection. Build for the purpose of constantly growing. So build a crappy website, then build another crappy website, and build a slightly less crappy website, and a slightly less crappy website than that. Go through that process. Even if you feel like you're not good enough, you're not going to build the projects that employers care about, build it anyways. If it's something that you really want to do, it excites you, build it, you're going to grow from it. The next time you tackle a project that uses something similar technologies, it solves a similar problem, you're going to be a little bit better at it. So get comfortable with building a bunch of crappy websites. You'd be surprised at how many of those projects that you feel aren't good enough that will catch the eye of certain employers just because you dove into, maybe they're looking to kind of structure and organize their CSS. They just have a bunch of static CSS files. They don't use a preprocessor. You feel like your design is really crappy, but your CSS is super organized. This company is looking for someone comfortable with Sass. And so you might catch their attention in a way you're not expecting. So get comfortable with Silver Query. Thanks for the follow. Welcome. Yeah, I think those are the two pieces of advice. Apply often, apply early, which means get comfortable with rejection. And two is build a bunch of crappy projects until your projects get less and less crappier. There are really cool programs where you guys could probably name them off, where you sign up and you build a really small project and you do it every day for 30 days straight, and then you have 30 projects to showcase an employer, and you look back and you realize, holy shit, I have 30 projects to showcase. They're not super fancy, but you don't realize how many of your competitors that are aiming for junior positions don't even have a portfolio up, and it's because they want to build the perfect website that they think is just going to capture the attention of the employers. Well, you have 30 projects that is going to get an employer to say, holy shit, this guy is passionate. They're not really pretty, still has a lot of room to grow, but he is trying. So hopefully that answers your question. But rejection is kind of a very hard thing with breaking into the industry. It's much harder to get into the industry than it is to get promotions and jump into a better position once you have that experience. It takes a lot of persistence. What's Crucible? Is that old? Probably. Finding an old tool on SourceForge. Atmospheric, I don't even know what Crucible is. It handles a lot of our automation, and it spawns up new. I believe. Oh crap! I'm probably like way off on this. This is how little I know about what DevOps, but I'm pretty sure it kind of handles a lot of our automation and spawning up testing environments. Like we'll usually have a QA process, we'll have a code review process, and we have different pieces of software to spawn up a VM so they can take a look at it. We can kind of like tweak the VM to show them exactly what they need to see to test the feature that we just built. I'm probably way off. I don't even know what Crucible is, but we use it. I know that. You do spaces unfollowed? Oh no. Automate the boring stuff with Python. Is it good for basics, Atmospheric? Have you ever considered learning machine learning for any of your web apps? Are you planning to learn about it in the future? Damon, absolutely. 100% want to get into that. Actually, I think that's really exciting stuff. Whether it's machine learning, I would love to build and get more comfortable building an AI. The concept is really cool. The complexity of what you need to build is really deep. I feel like I would learn a lot from that. It's fascinating. I read articles on AI maybe about once every week, usually on the bus rides home. Usually not on the bus rides there. I have different mindsets, like coming home from work and going to work. But I would definitely love to get into that. We did a little machine learning in Full Stack Academy. I didn't really understand it. I felt like it was way over my head. I remember we had these CS Saturdays. They were computer science Saturdays, and I hated them because I felt so dumb. Like we would pair up, and they'd teach us like a computer sciencey topic, and it was always very difficult. It's like one problem, and it took the entire day. Most of the time, you weren't expected to solve the problem, but you were expected to learn a lot of things on the way. And one thing that got me over imposter syndrome was pairing up with these people. I'm like, they know about as little as I do. I don't feel so dumb. That's kind of cool. And then we got to, I felt more on their level, and I got to learn things with them. And it was a really fun process. But before that, I never really worked with other people, trying to become developers. So I felt like I wasn't good enough to be in this field. But then when I met all these people that are going to become developers, I'm like, I kind of know what they know. Sometimes they knew the topic a little bit more than me, but I knew enough to catch their interest where they would listen to me and take my feedback. Maybe they were just humoring me, but I definitely would love to get into that someday. Real question, what is your view on the DRM in HTML5 and being proprietary? What is the DRM? Cool Jet, happy to answer your question. I don't know what DRM stands for. These guys do blind interviews, no resume for front-end developer roles. That is a really cool, Atos, that's a really cool concept. Huh. Inspirational talk. Thanks, SHV. Glad you like it. I was curious if people would even enjoy this Q&A thing. This is something that I would rather do. To give you guys, over the next few months, to give you guys kind of an idea of the plan, I'm learning a lot of UX stuff, and I have a lot of paid learning, so I can't really stream that. And so what I'd like to do, I'm starting up a mentorship program in Chicago for aspiring developers. We're going to have our first meetup probably after Thanksgiving, and I kind of just want them to bring their projects. I'd love to get to know them a little bit more. We get a lot more attention than I thought we would, and so we're gonna start that mentorship program. I'm gonna help them on their projects, try to give them as many free resources. I'm not there to teach them. I don't have the time to do that, but I want to give them a few hours every 2 weeks to kind of just come in with their questions. I'd love to see their projects, talk about how it's going, how their job process is going. And so Dev and I have talked about building an online mentorship, and I would love to link those two. I think that'd be a really cool concept. I've been thinking about ways to do that. So the start of this is to start doing a few Q&As like this. And then YouTube, I'm working on tutorials. People want to see live code. They want to see coding streams, but I find that more people want to see a start to finish tutorial than they want to see me just working on projects. They love me talking about the projects, but you know me, I get involved with chat and then I get distracted, and then so I think more of my coding that you're going to see is going to be on tutorials on YouTube, and then more of the live stream stuff is going to be more QA stuff, more mentorship stuff, more trying to help you guys out. So that's why I'm doing this. So it's cool to see so much support with it. Yeah, all sorts of deployments seems really impossible to a newbie. Any tips? Yeah, I mean, if you're becoming a developer, don't get overwhelmed by it. That's why I always forget the name. What do I have my sites deployed on? Heroku app. Completely free to deploy. It's really simple. FullStack Academy introduced Heroku app just because they really brought up a good point. Are you learning how to code? Or do you want to become a web or a DevOps? Like, do you want to get into DevOps, that career field? And it is a whole other beast. So don't overwhelm yourself with deployment solutions. Find the easiest ones. If you want to become a developer, learn how to code first. That stuff you'll learn. You'll learn your company's process when you get hired in, and it's going to take time. And it's probably going to be different than your development solution. Being able to just launch a website and getting it up and running, getting a user base, or being able to show it to an employer is good enough. So don't get overwhelmed by it. But if you want to learn more about it and you're interested in it, by all means, dive into it. But to become a developer, it's a little bit more important for a software engineer role, much less important for a front-end role. Crucible is like a software collaboration tool, like code review. Oh, holy shit! Yeah, I'm thinking of Ansible. No, it's not. I think I'm thinking of Ansible. No, I'm not. I'm thinking of Jenkins. Jenkins is the automation tool. And then Crucible is what we use for code reviews. I know we're doing a lot more code reviews on GitLab. Crucible kind of had its quirks. I actually like GitLab a little bit more. I wish they had better notifications for code reviews. It's a little bit, it's not as intuitive to see the differences when you push a new, like you do a code review and then you get some feedback, you push a new branch. It's not as intuitive, and it's not as prioritized to see the differences between those branches. You just see all the changes for the branch. So it improved the notifications, and it had more of like a more intuitive interface to see the differences. I think those are my two quirks with GitLabs, but it works for us better than Crucible. And I know our software engineers love the GitLabs review process, so we kind of, UI is adapted to, just using what the software engineers use. But yeah, 8 totes. Thanks for clarifying that. How long roughly does it take to learn something like this, web development? Silver Query. Depends on what you want to do. And it depends how much time you invest into it. If you invested about 40 hours a week, probably about 3 months. Sometimes it takes people less, sometimes it takes people more. I think the thing to emphasize is there's no line, okay, I'm done learning it, I have enough to get a job. I try to emphasize you should be trying to get a job from the very beginning and applying to jobs and showing what you've done so far along the way. And then, next month, oh, got a new project up, by the way, so that's going to be included in my resume and possibly in my cover letter, and so I'm going to continue applying for jobs, and then same for the next month. Whatever you have to show for that month, you keep applying and update your resume. It should be an ongoing process, but usually about 3 months is the earliest people usually even start getting callbacks for jobs. It can be a little bit less, but for me, it took about a year, and I was doing it about 20 hours a week, doing a part-time job on the side. So it all depends, but I would give yourself up to about a year with about 20 hours a week. That really gets you comfortable, but you can usually get a job before that. TensorFlow and Python for machine learning was nice. Digital rights management. It's basically so Netflix can show video in the browser without making content downloadable. Oh, interesting. I haven't read much about that. If you put in 10 hours a week, you can learn enough web development to get a job in 6 months, no problem. That's a pretty. I would agree with that time frame. That's a good recommendation. And it's hard to say. It depends on what you want to learn as well. Yeah, Dan, I don't think I have. I'm not sure I have an answer for that. That's a good question. I haven't really looked into that, so I don't want to take a stab at it, but I really don't know. C++, obscure. How much demand is there for part-time devs? Not a lot from what I've seen. I think internships. There aren't a lot of internships compared to the full-time positions from what I've seen, and usually they favor students because they're usually. I mean, when I think part-time jobs for development positions, I think internships. That's usually what you're going to find. So I mean, you can get internships that are full-time, but I haven't seen a lot of part-time. But that's my area. That's Chicago. Maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe if you're at a university, it's a little bit different. You can get startups that really don't have the funds to pay full-time, that just bring in a web developer part-time. I've gotten offers from startups that only had enough to pay me for part-time. I'm pretty sure they were wanting full-time hours. Yeah, you'll get maybe startups and universities that will like bring you in for. Like I got into a research program because I knew a little bit of PHP and ended up not being able to build it for her, which I still feel bad for. But I mean, I got into a research program which opened up a lot of doors for me, just because they needed a little part-time work for a project. But it's not something I got paid for. It was college credits. But it definitely opened up a lot of doors for different psychology-focused things. That was my career, by the way. Psychology major in web development. Hello. Hello. Nedgelepsy? I've been learning vanilla JavaScript for a month now. I know it's not so long, but I want to start with Node.js and one other. What's your other? So here's a question. What do you think about React versus Angular and React Native versus NativeScript? I don't know what NativeScript is. Is that just like TypeScript for mobile? To create like a hybrid app? I would say look at what jobs in your area are requiring and go with that. React will get you a job. Angular will get you a job. Vue.js will start to get you a job now. It's definitely picking up in popularity. I think you can't go wrong with React or Angular. I think the bigger thing is to learn a framework, and I think that's going to be helpful. I would warn you that 1 month of learning JavaScript, maybe you're diving into a framework too soon. But if you want to learn it, and while you're learning that framework, what I would encourage you to do is continue to get more comfortable with the basics of JavaScript. But you can't go wrong with React or Angular. Prioritize what you should learn based on what jobs are requiring in your local area. Because if your goal is to get a full-time position, if it isn't, you can learn whatever framework you want. Silver query depends. Of course, you got to learn the right things. You can't just pick something obscure like Haskell or CS++. And think you can do web dev after learning those things for 6 months. Yeah, Haskell's a bit unique. I would not recommend Haskell. I'd recommend Haskell you can get a really high-paid specialized position in Haskell, I'm sure, but not breaking into the industry. I wouldn't say C++ is obscure. I think C++ is a safe bet. To get into web development with C++, it depends on your local market. What is it, C# for .NET development? But yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with C++. I just don't know if I would focus on that if you want to get into web development. How much demand is there for part-time devs? Did I miss that? No, I didn't miss that. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of demand for part-time devs in my local area. Figure a company would be excited not to have to pay for benefits, and I don't want to be tied into an office job 5 days a week. Look for an internship. Yeah, definitely look for an internship. That's a good question. Look for an internship position. You might even get into freelancing a little bit. Kind of go to local businesses and say, especially ones that don't have a website already, and say, you know, I can create this landing page for you that can make you a bit of money. I'm not charging much. I can even do it for free. If you're building up your portfolio, that's also an option. You can do it for free. So there aren't a lot of opportunities, but there are opportunities. They're just probably not going to be listed as part-time like a part-time dev position. It's probably going to be an internship. Good enough part-time unless you're already good and it's a hobby. I think you would grow a whole lot more from a part-time position than you would self-learning. So I disagree with atmospheric in that sense. But my question is, why are you just doing part-time? Are you not ready to commit to a full-time job? Why not apply for full-time positions? That's my argument. But I think you would grow a whole lot more in a part-time position than you would self-teaching. You do. Like, you're learning in a position that gives you deadlines, where you are learning from other team members. You accelerate your growth a lot. Most people will. There are like this small percentage that are so self-disciplined, they pick up clients really quickly, they accept really creative projects that challenge their skills. There's a very small percentage of entrepreneurs at heart, basically, that grow very quickly, but most people don't. Most people grow very quickly in a full-time position. I used to eat Kool-Aid, but now I'm rich. Been learning vanilla JavaScript for... shoot. Okay, I went up a little bit. I'm sorry. I missed some questions. I mean, I really love the way that I can make both apps like Discord and web apps, and what is more, with native JavaScript React Native, I can make simple apps in Android. It sounds like you're experimenting a lot. It sounds like you're trying a lot. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Steph. I don't have my bot reminding me. Where is my bot? What the hell? It sounds like you're experimenting a lot. Try different stuff. That's really cool. Build a mobile app. Do it in a native language. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I do think diving into building apps in different languages for the purpose of just exploring and learning different patterns of organizing your code, because when you experiment with different languages, you learn different patterns of code. The reason why I love the idea of like building a mobile app and then like trying to build an app like Discord and getting into web development, the reason why I do encourage that, and for the only reason I encourage it, is because you start, like, when you're new, as long as it's not overwhelming, you start introducing yourself to all these different languages, and you expose yourself to possibilities of discovering a platform you really enjoy. Like for me, I really enjoy web development. I enjoy the front end. I like JavaScript. It's a messy pain in the butt, but I like it. I love CSS. Because I started out with PHP and not on the front end, and I was scared of CSS. If I didn't try front end stuff, I wouldn't have known. And so exploring all of, like, building like one basic app in this platform exposes you to get you to think, do I like this or don't I? If I don't, or I'm not really excited about building another project in this, let's explore something else. So that's a really cool way to gain something from that. Just be careful about how many other things that you dive into. It's really easy to not learn enough of the basics to get hired because you're learning just enough to build this really crappy mobile app in this platform or something. So there are advantages and disadvantages with that. I would say definitely get a balance with that. And don't build 1,000 different apps on 1,000 different platforms. Try a few. Try mobile development, try web development, try just, build a game. dive into Unity. That's something I wish I would have explored a little bit more, because I could see myself really enjoying game development. But I should drink some water. You're right. Do you think it's useful to learn something about code validation and code standards and patterns before applying for a position? You have really good questions, Damon. You have really good questions, by the way. I mean, yes, and a lot of the tutorials, if you usually get a tutorial focused on teaching you JavaScript, you're usually going to learn a lot of the conventions of developers building things in JavaScript. If you focus on an article that focuses on building an app, you don't really focus, you learn how to build that app. You don't really learn why he's using certain things that he's using. You don't really learn why he's organizing the routes and the way he's doing it. He's just doing it to build the app. And they don't, usually the focus is on exposure to a lot of things, but with little depth. And it really is just for the purpose of getting an app out so you could show employers. It's a cool way to get you interested in building a really cool project, but you don't really learn the depth of the language that you really could learn. So I think it is really helpful. I think where people start to lose that balance, where they start to dive too much into really good coding conventions, is when they're reading a lot. Like they're reading a lot of books. Like I have the book Pragmatic Programmer. I am really excited to read that. It's a fun read, and I'm becoming a better developer for reading this, but I'm at a point in my career where it's helpful. Now, if you're just starting out, diving into books like that teach you really good fundamentals, you could spend weeks reading books like that and not code anything. So having a balance, maybe reading trying to learn about patterns and conventions and good code architecture, learning a little about that each night, and then putting a big focus on just coding and building projects, because I think that's where the majority of your growth is going to come, is building and coding. It's going to reinforce everything you're learning. And then go back and maybe learn a little bit more about how you might be able to organize your React app in a better way. And then for the next project, let's apply some of what I learned, and I didn't invest all my time into here. Let's apply some of what I learned for my new project. So I think if you learn about those conventions, they'll happen naturally as you keep coding and building and encountering problems. And when you have a problem, you realize, well, crap, I have, 4 pieces of a data structure that are repeated on the, they're repeated in the database, they're repeated in the route. What the hell? Like, I need to organize my code. Wait for you to encounter those, or wait for yourself to encounter those problems before you find the solution and focus on that code architecture to fix that problem. Allow learning these conventions and these patterns to happen naturally. As you encounter these problems, then you will dive into very specific learning. You're going to be very open to learning it because it's going to solve your own problem. You're going to retain it better because you really want to learn it. And then you're going to apply it to a project which you'll be able to showcase an employer. So I'd be careful about diving into that heavily and focusing just on that, but it does have its use for learning it. It's a really good question, by the way. Alright. Alright. Yeah, keep that out of Twitch chat. That's right, we're gonna get some unique visitors from IRL. What do you feel most accomplished about? I think I feel most accomplished not necessarily getting this position, but being able to make my company a lot of money. I think my confidence in becoming a better developer and getting past imposter syndrome spending months building features and building websites that have made my company a lot of money. Because I can, if something were to, I enjoy the job that I do, but let's say I move on for whatever reason, being able to talk about all the value that I provided my company and the money that I made them, it gives me confidence that I have skills to make others money, which makes a developer really successful. I'm able to solve people's problems and make them a lot of money. So I feel accomplished in making my company money because it really solidified that I am becoming a better developer and that I can market myself as such. Until, if I'm just building stuff for myself, personal projects, there really isn't a substantial reward, and I don't really know whose problem is it solving. I don't have a giant user base for any of my personal projects, I'm just building to build. Whereas in this full-time position, I'm building to solve people's problems, and I'm making them money, which makes me more marketable, and I'm growing a ton from learning from my team. So I think it's probably the growth that I've had in this position that I feel most accomplished. I have other areas in my life where I got into crisis management that I still feel really proud of, but I think your focus is more on like development. Hey, Good Idea Company, how's it going? Welcome back. Zira, am I rich? No, I live in Chicago. I can't be rich. I would honestly give more of a yes if I didn't have giant college loans looming over my head. I hate college loans. I wish I never would have went to college. I didn't know. I didn't know I was going to become a developer, though. I didn't know. I thought I was going to become a psychologist. I wanted to get into counseling and help people, and did not go that route. The best JavaScript tutorial you've ever done is watch and code. Is it? What made it so good? Too much work, but I love it. I'm sure you have a lot of work on your plate, Good Idea Company. And do you have any advice on which soft skills to focus on to become more favorable for employers when you're in the application process? That's a really good question. I had this annoying... My instructor at Full Stack Academy was really honest, for better or worse. And what I would do, when I would try to solve a problem, I would sigh. Like, if I couldn't figure it out, it's almost like I was disappointed in myself, and I was nervous when we would do these mock interviews. Even though it was a mock interview, I'd be nervous. I couldn't solve the problem right away. So and then I'd think, and I'd look miserable solving the problem. And my instructor, and then I eventually solved it, and I solved it. I solved things that other people in the class weren't catching right away, and he really made me feel good about what I could do. He's like, there's this little quirk about you. He basically said it's not fun to pair program with you in these interviews, because I would sigh and I would look like I was like mad or depressed, and I wasn't. It was just how I was coming off. And I was actually, as I was going through the problem in my head, I was really excited. I'm like, okay, I got to the next step. Oh, I get this part. But I wasn't really externalizing that, and I wasn't showing the interview that side of me. And so what he helped me realize was I need to show, because I explained, I don't feel this way. It's all internalized. And he said, show that. Show that you're having fun with the interviewer. Show that even though you don't get the problem and it's trumping you, that's not what the interviewer is looking for. They're looking for a few things. They're looking for you to have fun solving the problem. They're looking for you to be able to talk through your thoughts and be a good communicator, ask questions. It's not about having the solutions. They're just looking to see that you're teachable, that you have a pragmatic approach to things, that you ask the right questions to eventually solve the problem, and that they want to teach you. You're teachable. They want to be around you. They want to work with you. When you're learning this process, you get excited with them, and that gets them excited. A lot of experienced developers, they get that boost of inspiration when they feel that inspiration coming from junior developers. That's why so many of the senior people that have come into our channel, they'll give back and they'll just be here. They're much more experienced than me, and they're kind of just here to help out because they love helping junior developers because they bring this passion and this inspiration. So going into these interviews, I know it's hard. Try not to focus on so much of what you can't provide. Focus more on your passion for eventually becoming this amazing developer that's going to contribute toward this team, because you're really passionate about development. You want to learn about the process that they set up. You want to learn how to make the company money through effective design or whatever it is. Like, have fun in the interview process and make it a back and forth. Ask the interviewer questions about, like, you know, you could even explain, like, you know, I kind of had this imposter syndrome. I know I can build things, but then I kind of feel, maybe this isn't the best thing to bring up in an interview, but Jax, thanks for the follow. But yeah, just kind of have that two-way conversation and ask them questions like, you know, how did you get over imposter syndrome? It's a thing. Like, almost every developer goes through it, and they'll tell you. They'll tell you. They'll probably have fun talking about, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember my first interview. It just, I was nervous. I knew the answer to the question, but because I was so nervous, I didn't really connect with the interviewer well, and I think I like, that might not be their story, but they'll talk about it and they'll be excited to talk about it. So ask questions, have fun. Remember, it's a two-way process. Remember, you don't need to know everything in the interview. Go into the interview with the mindset that you're going to learn from this experienced developer. You're gonna learn and grow and figure out, even if you don't have the skills to say it, you're gonna figure out what you need to gain in order to start getting the eyes of more companies and get further through the interview process. So have fun with the interview process. Connect. They're human beings. Connect with the interviewer. Be able to kind of just have good communication, ask good questions, get excited about what you do, what they do, and that's going to shine a lot more than if someone were to guarantee you. Actually, I know there were people much more experienced than me that did not get my position because they were described as a wet noodle. Because they weren't really, no one wanted to work with them. They might have come off as arrogant, or they might have come off as uninterested in growing as a developer. Like, where they got the interviewer to think, well, why are you even here? What are you doing here? Do you want to become a developer? Like, all the things that you're mentioning, like, you seem miserable talking about it. I don't know. I know I probably went off on a tangent there, but I think that was probably the best piece of advice that my instructor gave me, and identified how I was coming off, that I carried over into my interviews, and I improved a lot and got further into the process. Hopefully that helps. Pragmatic Programmer is great. It is atmospheric, and I'm just about to finish chapter 2. It's really cool. Software engineers at our company, they recommended that I read it, and they're kind of holding me accountable for reading it. And so I'm diving into a lot of UX stuff, and then I have this software engineer that's constantly bugging me, hey, what chapter are you on? Because we have this book club for it. So it's really cool. Do you think the core knowledge of computer science, and anyone new to the channel, sorry if your question doesn't get answered right away, but I'm trying to answer every question because I think people are finding it helpful. And if so, I will get to your question. Just please be patient. Do you have any? Do you think the core knowledge of CS concepts such as algorithms, compiler design, etc., helps increasing your odds to get a junior position? Quapfeld, thanks for the follow. Welcome. Not really. Not really. I think computer science programs often don't focus enough on applicable skills. I think they do teach you great concepts that you will be able to carry over in your field, but I usually push for developer boot camps because they provide more targeted of a learning experience and more applicable skills than a computer science program does. For example, about half of our class at Full Stack Academy wanted to become a developer. Well, all of them wanted to become developers, but they had a computer science degree. And when they got off into the real world, they found that they were lacking skills as a developer. They had a really good core understanding of the fundamentals of data structures and algorithms, and I feel like everyone was better at whiteboard interviews than I was. That's probably where I had a lack of confidence, is in solving algorithms. I still do. I'm still trying to get a little bit better at it, but I realize that's not my priority as a front-end engineer. So it helps, but it should not be your primary focus. It definitely helps, and the questions that I ask our software engineers as I try to learn better code architecture, they're usually answered by understanding a lot of these fundamentals, but that's not what got me my job. So they do help. They do help you become a better developer, but if you're trying to get that first position, I would argue, even as a software engineer, your focus should be on building projects and managing projects, getting a user base, dealing with all this, prioritizing feedback, having some sort of a Scrum process where you're tracking everything, especially if you have a freelance business, and being able, like, all that stuff, I feel like is going to get you a job much more than understanding fundamentals of computer science. It helps. It's just not what I would prioritize. It's a really good question, though. If you understand compiler design, hopefully you don't just apply for junior web development. I would argue compiler design, you're not going to dive into you're not going to dive into web development. You're going to dive more into lower level stuff, right? That's what atmospheric. That's a really good point. Compiler design knowledge does not translate to mid-level web dev. It's compiler design. I would argue that's not really a web dev. That's not what you should prioritize. That skill is not looked at as highly as other skills. It's a really complex thing, and it's a really interesting thing to learn, but you're going to start getting into more DevOpsy stuff. You might deal with that a little bit in software engineering, but it's probably not going to be focused with web development. It's going to be focused with building software and building systems. I don't know. Maybe. I wouldn't learn compiler design for web development specifically. You mentioned that I'm experimenting a lot. I think it's true. I don't know if native apps are good for me yet, but I will definitely try it anyway. Same goes with HTML, JavaScript, Canvas. I want to try building Pac-Man in Canvas so badly that I've done it before. My question for you is, do you feel like do you have finished projects to show for all this? It's great that you're trying this out. I would highly encourage you to finish your projects. So the piece of advice I got with experimenting with different platforms and languages, I think is only effective when you have projects to show for it, where you can talk about it in interviews, because it can really help make you marketable. It can also make you look like you're not a finisher, that you don't finish your projects for whatever reason. You're a procrastinator, so it could have a negative effect on you. So finish those projects, even if they're not the best design projects. Of course, I didn't make Pac-Man 100% by my own, which is totally bad. I know. I was just watching a tutorial and tried to. No, that's great. I've done that. A lot of people do that. Honestly, getting a web dev job is easy. Build shit, publish it online, write a blog post about it, no matter how elementary it is. Apply to a lot of jobs and get one. Web dev jobs are so easy to come by if you can just prove you know how to do it. I think you basically just explain how to get a web dev position. I think easy is not the right word to describe it. I think it takes a lot of hard work and persistence, and I think a lot of people need to overcome their fear of rejection, and you'd be surprised at how many people need to build better habits that are going to make them a hireable developer. Learning the syntax and the skills to become a web dev is easy. Building the good habits that a company wants to hire is harder. That's a good point. It's definitely a good point. It kind of made me think about that. Is it worth investing an hour a week into writing a blog? Yes. Holy shit, yes. That is such a good question, Damon. Is it worth investing an hour a week into writing a blog as a junior developer to gain more traction and solidify your knowledge? Damon, 100%. I recommend everyone create a blog and build up your online presence. The reason why I didn't have a test project for the company I work for is because my boss literally watched. So I did a live stream where you can use a different platform. You can build a blog. It's the same thing. It's getting your name out there. It's getting exposure. It's building up your network. Holy shit, is doing something like that so incredibly useful for getting your name out there and getting that first position. Yes, yes, yes. 100 times yes. An hour a day is completely worth it. And I'm sure very few people would disagree with that. So I skipped the whole getting tested with a project because my boss, little did I know, because I provided my live stream and dates on when I stream in all of my cover letters. And so my boss actually watched a couple streams before I even interviewed with him, which was surprising and really cool. And he thought it was really cool that I was teaching other people how to do this, and that was portrayed as passion, as portrayed as a developer that would constantly grow in the company. Maybe he would describe it as slightly different, but that's kind of what I understand. And so, yes, building a blog shows passion. It does. It shows passion. It shows that you really like what you're doing, what you're learning, and you're trying to teach others as you're going. That's awesome. You should definitely do it. An hour a day is 100% worth it. It's something that I need to do right now to grow as a developer that I need to do a better job at. It's not about what you know that gets you the job. It's what they know you know. Blog about something and they'll know you know it. Yeah, exactly. Because with a junior position, with any position, you have a percentage of risk to them, right? And really, I kind of described it to the Full Stack alumni panel, and this is how I see it. Maybe you guys think differently. It's the interview process and getting hired is really about reducing the amount of risk they see you as, especially as a junior developer. And being able to demonstrate through projects or through blogging, through talking about it in an abstract way, through trying to teach it, tells them you understand that concept. And it really convinces them more that you understand that concept than if they were to just ask you in an interview. It's like, okay, did you just pull some fancy-ass answer? Did you rehearse your answers? No, you've actually talked about it. You taught people in a blog post. You know your shit. Even if you're making mistakes in your blog post, it's still going to give them confidence because, everyone knows that you learn through teaching, and the fact that you knew enough about this topic to think about how you were to articulate this process shows that you are taking major steps into learning this concept, and you're probably, after that end of the blog post, even if you made mistakes, even if you were wrong, you probably learned a lot more about it by finishing that project. And then especially if you're getting comments and questions and people challenging your ideas, and the way you respond to that feedback in a positive, constructive way, that is just something that's going to help you even more shine a lot more than your other competitors in your interviews. A blog there's so many good things a blog gives you. It's incredible. Blogs talking about how you built a blog. Yep, there are those, and I've read those actually. I've contemplated writing blogs about projects and the way I tackle the challenges I had to deal with for the specific project. Yeah, no, it's a great thing to talk about. It is a time investment. An hour a day is not a bad estimation to it. It's about, 7 hours a week? If you're thinking about writing a blog post and only taking an hour on it, it might only take that. You might have topics where you don't dive into full depth. But blogs, writing content takes a long time. Spinning up a video like this, for me, that's why I preferred live coding streams, because I could just start. Like creating tutorials on YouTube, I postponed it so much because planning out content, it takes time. It really does. build stuff, publish it online, some free tier of Heroku and some. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, that's really good advice. I meant showing app and describing, or showing app plus code. Blog with codes published. Oh, okay. Sounds like he answered that question. You're not trying to learn all the things. You're just trying to make yourself look like you know a lot. I don't see. That's where I disagree. I don't think it's a deception, and that's kind of what it sounds like. I don't think it's the idea that you're trying to make the employer, make them think that you know a lot. I think what a blog does is being honest and transparent about what you don't know can help you just as much, because it's telling them that you're going through this process of trying to articulate how to explain this concept. And when you try to teach, they know you're going to learn and retain it a little bit better. It's just, it's just proven in research. And so when you're trying to teach this in a blog, I think it's not about you saying, oh, I know all this stuff. It's about saying, I am trying to constantly learn and grow in this profession, and this is what I'm learning. And I might not know everything now, but I'm able to articulate and at least be a good communicator in trying to teach others this. I think coming up with this deception that you know everything is the wrong way to go with that. Cool Jet, thanks for the follow. Welcome. So maybe that's not what you meant, but I don't think it's about putting up this. To an extent, you're kind of trying to portray yourself providing value, a lot of value. But I would be careful. There's a fine line where employers will, as soon as you lose the distrust of an employer because you oversold yourself, I think it's much harder to recover from that than it is to go in saying, hey, I know you're looking for these technologies. I never really worked with React, but I feel like React is, it's a solution that can solve my problem. All my JavaScript, I'm trying to build an interactive app, and my JavaScript is so unorganized. React is definitely my next step, and I would love to learn it. And going that route with that transparency will definitely make you much more attractive than to say, I know everything about React, blah, 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 and you've only built one single React app, and then when challenged, you're probably not going to know the deeper concepts of React, or why you use certain conventions, why you manage state in one component versus splitting up the state, why you chose to use Redux versus just using React. You're going to get those questions, and when you don't have those answers and you oversold yourself, it's just harder to recover from that. I think anything is about learning on the job, too. Once you're in, you really start learning from the team you work with. And that's really the take-home. And you start learning from Google. Never expect anyone to teach you anything, and you'll be a much stronger developer. I think there's a lesson in that. And I think what he's saying is you need to become the best student in the world. You need to learn how to teach yourself and learn on your own before you're ready to become a developer that's really going to grow at a fast rate. I think that's the lesson there. If you want to learn something, don't ask your teammates until you've made a Stack Overflow post and asked in at least one other chat room. Yeah, I think the lesson there is just to try to solve the problem on your own, because you're going to grow a lot from doing that. That's a good thing to bring up. I've even brought it up to my boss. We do monthly reviews where we just go over my progress in growing as a developer. And I thought I was asking too many questions. Sorry, I'm never going to look at the camera when I talk. I just don't. I look everywhere else but the camera when I think. But I thought I was asking too many questions. And the reason why I would ask him a lot of questions was because we had deadlines, and the questions really were answered by knowing the complexities and the intricacies of the code base I didn't know about. And so I had this thought in my mind, am I asking too many questions? Because, like you said, Dan, I should be learning this stuff on my own. And so I always did try to learn as much as I could on my own, and it's when do I really ask my boss for help? And so I asked him, I'm like, I feel like I'm asking too many questions. Should I be learning more of this stuff on my own? Should I put more time into it? And I explained, I'm like, I ask questions because we have deadlines, and I could spend a day trying to find this little piece of the code base that I didn't really know about, or I can ask you and you could solve it in 10 minutes. And I'm like, I want to just make sure I'm growing as a developer and I'm not depending on you too much. And very quickly he's like, no, you ask questions. Ask 1,000 questions. You are not bothering me with questions. So I think the idea is asking the right questions. So if you, let's say you get the task of like getting more comfortable with, I never used local storage before. I always just used cookies. And I could have asked my boss to teach me that, or I could have learned it on my own. It's really simple. Local store, I thought it was this complex thing, and it's super simple. So I learned it on my own instead of asking my boss. And that is something to learn on your own. Now, if you are getting this bug in the code base, maybe you're getting these weird override styles or certain templates aren't being loaded. You included it in the same pattern you've done in the past. Trying it out a little bit on your own is feasible. Spending an entire day to figure out something that's influenced by the complexity of the code base is a waste of time and it's not productive. So knowing the right questions to ask your teammates is kind of something to distinguish. But I think the idea is trying your own, and there are certain things where you need to spend the time to learn on your own. There are certain things that it's more productive to just ask your team because it's the complexity of the code base. So you do have that line, and you will start to discover what questions your teammates want you to ask and what questions they want you to put more time in on your own. But for the most part, when you're first getting your position, you're trying to learn everything. You're not just, like, we have people in our Discord that come in and they ask questions and they say, Dev can probably preach this, but like, I want to build a social media app. I want to build, yeah, let's just go with that. I want to build a social media app. How do I do that? What answer are you expecting? And so we'll give them articles on getting them a little bit comfortable with setting up, a database and kind of a platform for a social media. And then they say, then they'll ask the question, okay, read all of your articles. I want to learn how to use Mongo. How do I do that? Those kind of questions are probably going to piss your teammates off. Now, really good, well thought out questions are going to sound like, hey, I've set Mongo up in the way the tutorial describes. I've looked at other resources. For some reason, I'm getting this error and I cannot find, for the life of me, a solution to it. And it's probably because you don't really know the basics of that platform well enough. And so you post a very specific problem that you've looked into. That is a great question to ask. I know I elaborated on that quite a bit, but I hope that kind of distinguishes between the types of questions you should ask. Do you know the difference between developers and software engineers? They're the same. It's the same thing. Never annoy the people you work with. Teach yourself from free resources like people on the internet, and your peers will respect you. Yep. All good advice. Yeah, both are developers. Engineers just have a sexier title because they are usually full of them. I don't know about that. Let's keep it a little bit kinder, Dan. I've been called a senior engineer and I've had just a title developer. But it really does. There's a very little difference. There really is. I got offered a CTO position. I got offered a CTO position right after Full Stack Academy. There are definitely realistic timelines that you should be aware of when you really should be considered a senior developer. Like if you are getting the offer of you're going to become a senior developer in 1 year, I'd be a little bit more cautiously optimistic about that position and the opportunities that it's providing for that developer to grow. I think the expectations are going to be very unrealistic for that developer. They're probably going to get overwhelmed in that position. But if I don't really know the timeline, but we do have a senior, we do kind of have like a engineer role 1, 2, and 3, and then we have a senior 1, 2, and 3. And I think the timeline is pretty extensive, and I feel more confident that I'm going to, well, I have more confidence that I'm going to grow here because of that. It's like when I did jujitsu, it's like you had like studios that would hand out belts like candy after a few months, and I kind of like had that concept in mind, and I really sucked. Like everyone, God, I'd have people half the size of me like tossing me all around. They were really good at what they did, and it took me like, it would have taken me at least 6 months to a year to get past my white belt, and it makes me look like a newbie, right? But God, the amount that I grew in that 3 months, I did like Taekwondo, which I would never recommend. It's fun. It just doesn't teach you what you think it's going to teach you until you start getting into really higher levels. But like the amount that I learned to kind of just be able to put on gloves and do that kind of stuff, I was able to hold my own a lot more in those 3 months than I was learning how to do Taekwondo for 3 years, right? I know it's not development, but I'm just using this as an example. I tend to favor, same for like boot camps, like when they say you're going to become this amazing developer in 3 months and you're going to get a mid-level position, you're going to dive into this career past a junior level, and I don't know. You know, you get these like scams that you just know are too good to be true. They're saying you're going to achieve this reward way faster than you know you should be able to achieve it. I'd be skeptical on that. So yeah, I got offered a CTO position. I think they're nice people. I think they were able to pay me a few dollars an hour, something like that. It was a startup, and they were just trying to get a developer on board for little pay by offering them a high position. I'd be skeptical of that. Hey, Demon, welcome back. Good to have you back. How have you been? I'm a super profitable business on the side with an app I built in less than a month by myself that I was stupidly simple and almost anyone could do it. Like me calling myself CTO makes me a better dev or a senior engineer. Now, I think you're getting the wrong interpretation of that, Dan. If you're a good programmer, learning new languages is easy. Yeah, and you do pick up languages down the road a lot easier. It's just a lot of stuff. You just have to put the time into learning. Yeah, exactly. Pragmatic programmer approach is basically generalist approach to all this stuff. Is it? Is that what the book goes over? I'm kind of curious. I don't know if you're talking about Pragmatic Programmer, the book, or not. I mean, what other profession can you get a career started in 6 months? Many professions, actually. One pro is to build a portfolio website if you want to get into web dev. That way you have something to show what you can do. Yeah, no, absolutely. Portfolio is really helpful for web development. Nothing in life is easy. Everything in life you have to work for is hard. You can do anything as long as you put the time into it. Yeah. I think easy is being tossed around a little bit loosely by Dan. I don't think it's easy. I think he's more talking about the complexity of what you have to learn. Easy is relative. Keep in mind, when you say something is super easy, and then when someone struggles with it, you discourage them from pushing forward with it. If you do kind of want to help others grow in it, in a field, I would avoid words like that. Easy is very relative, but describe like why it's so easy. Like keep talking about the things of how really all you have to do is put the time into it, where you don't have to have an IQ to learn JavaScript or CSS. You just need to be passionate about building it. Focus on the good motivators of what's going to get you there versus, the saying, it's super easy. That's like saying, if you don't get it, you just failed at something that's super. It's not really easy. It does take a lot of time, and there are a lot of complexities. It's difficult in different ways. But I think what you're trying to say is anyone, as long as you're passionate, is capable of achieving it. I think that's the message you're trying to portray. Let me know. Correct me if I'm wrong. What would you recommend to someone who is just getting back into web dev? Haven't done anything since the last year Due to health issues, college. Dex, welcome back. Well, I already know what you can do. You should, if your goal is a full-time position, you should start applying now. I think you should have started applying a long time ago. I think you'd be surprised at the value that you could provide a company. But you should start building stuff. You should start building stuff that gets you excited in it again. I mean, it takes time to build up that habit of constantly doing it and getting back into it. So start with something small that you want to build that gets you excited. Dive into that. I wouldn't focus so much on learning something, but more on starting to build something. And then if you encounter a plateau or something you don't know, learn it as you go along. I think that's where you are in the process, but it depends on your goals too. Are you aiming for a full-time position, freelancing, or do you just want to build stuff? Is it true that JavaScript is rising up in every way while, for example, desktop apps and C# is losing on popularity? Not really. I don't think so. I think JavaScript is has a very sporadic history of popularity, and not JavaScript in general, just a lot of the libraries and frameworks in JavaScript. No, I think C# is a little less common in offered positions. I mean, just .NET development in general, I think. I don't know. I think Dev can speak to that a little bit more than me. I don't think they're so different in popularity that I would pick one over the other due to popularity. I think you've chosen two things where if you want to get into .NET development, go that route. If you want to get into, Node or front-end development, even if you want to like get into PHP stuff, whatever your back end is, if you want to even have like Ruby on the back end. I don't know. I wouldn't make a choice based on the popularity of those two. I had no degree and no experience and applied to shit and got 15 interviews in a month the first time. That's good for you, Dane. Is there anything nowadays I should definitely look into? What do you want to do, Dex? What do you want to dive into? JavaScript is a great language to land a job. A lot of people hate JavaScript. I'm sure you know you're not alone on that. Go on GitHub and look at popular projects. Subscribe to subreddits related to what you're interested in. That's a good idea. Yeah, absolutely, Atmospheric. What language do you work in again for the job you're at right now? Rival. Welcome back, by the way. So we work with Django. So I do a lot of templating with Django. So I work with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Those are the primary three that I code in. I'm going to be diving into WordPress fairly shortly for a quick project or a quick initiative that our CEO had. We did some outsourcing work, and it's going to get launched. I'm going to maintain that. So, but yeah, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I think I'm going to start heavily the more I can grow with the UX side of things, the more value I can provide to this company, from what I understand. So I'm really, that's why I haven't seen a lot of live coding streams, because I'm going through a couple Udemy courses that are helping me get a little bit more comfortable with UX stuff, and it's always been weak with design, so I'm trying to get more comfortable with that. But yeah, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Me, I'm in between jobs. Last job was Ruby in the back end and JavaScript on the front end. Interesting. How do you like Ruby? Ruby job, made it to the final interview. Elixir is the best web dev language, hands down, right now. It's not the best language for landing your first. What do you define as best? I totally disagree with Tim. Right now, web dev jobs are all over the place. Don't waste your time worrying about any single application. Shotgun method until you find someone click with. I'm not saying lie, but certainly don't correct someone if they think you know more. I think that's a better way to describe it. What you were portraying a little bit more was lying. There are certain truths that you really don't need to go in if they're not challenging it at work. They're going to challenge things if they see a little bit of get a little bit of distrust, or not distrust, but they get this sense where they're not fully confident, enough of what they're looking for. They're going to push it, right? They're going to push it. They're going to ask questions. Let them ask those questions. Don't volunteer necessarily, and I think that was your point, don't volunteer necessarily that you suck at a language or something like that. But I would argue the way that you present that transparency will help you gain more favor for that employer by being humble with something you don't know. And so that's where I disagree with you, Dan, is when they're asking, like I got asked about test-driven development. He asked about Jasmine and what was the other one? What else do we use? When he weighs Jasmine, he asked. I mean, it was something that you use every day. It would have helped me. It would have helped me become more competitive against the other applicants. And I said, I'm not super comfortable with Jasmine, but I'm trying. It's definitely something that's helping my workflow. It's helping me make less mistakes. It's something I want to grow in. And that transparency of telling them I'm not really good with it. And that's the image I portrayed. He found that favorable. And so that's where I disagree. And I think that's going to be a little bit damaging when you start trying to teach people to get on the edge of lying. You'd be surprised at the power of providing that transparency is, but there is a line on how much information you do deliver to. You don't want to go in saying, I put about 6 months in HTML and CSS, but I really don't think I know enough for this to get a job. Like I'm just trying to interview and see how it goes. And I really like your company. I haven't really gotten into test-driven development yet. But I don't know. I'm just, I want to get into a company that I want to, I feel like I'm going to learn a lot more at a company than if I were to do it on my own. Like all that is just, this is terrible. That I think that it's more about the attitude and what you portray. You'd be surprised at the power of transparency can give you in favor when you deliver it the right way. Camera shy? Who's camera shy? You enjoy hearing other opinions on web dev careers, so thanks for sharing. Hopefully I'm not being too abrasive. No, Dan, you're definitely you've provided tons of advice I agree on. But no, I love this conversation, so please don't take it personal if I tend to get this mindset of I want to deliver the best information, and I challenge ideas a lot to make sure, because you'd be surprised at how many people are reading your advice. And I've had people come into chat and just give awful, just superficial advice that isn't helping people in any way. And I'll challenge that a lot more. But no, you've given a lot of advice, even if some of it's challenging what I'm saying. It's really helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you. I want to build a new Facebook. Can you build me a login page? Let me see if I can catch up with chat a little bit. Questions, yeah, we'll talk about a rate of price at that point. That's a good way to word it, Dev. Nightbot, please. No, I need Nightbot because I forget. I always forget to drink water. Guys, thanks for all the support. I honestly didn't expect to get any viewers for a Q&A. You guys have tons of good questions. I've gone way over what I thought I was going to do. I was going to do this for a half an hour, so it sounds like we should do this at least once every 2 weeks. I want to start doing it on YouTube a little bit, but I want to create more tutorial videos. People want to see tutorials. That's all the feedback I'm getting. Unfortunately, Twitch, I think I need to focus more on the live interaction. And basically, the live coding, some people are interested in it, but I think people find more value if I were to just build a tutorial from start to finish and explain it. I think a lot of people. Twitch, I don't know. Twitch is more for live interaction, not for live coding. That's my experience over my 2 years of Twitch. But I could just be pushing people away for another reason. I've had music, I've tried out tons of different things, but I think people just appreciate the live interaction on Twitch. I don't know. If any of you have YouTube channels and you have, gained a few thousand subscribers or even more, I'd love to hear your advice on YouTube. I've definitely been looking into YouTube a lot more. Have a good Stack Overflow reputation help you landing a job? I wonder if it's good as having a blog, Jax. I would argue having a blog is better. I would argue that having a blog is better if you know how to market that blog. If no one sees a blog, it doesn't help. You know, that's why like me streaming on Twitch or YouTube is better, because I put all my time into learning how to code versus learning how to market myself. It's like you got to put time into marketing yourself for your own platform to be effective. So there's a time investment with that. So maybe a Stack Overflow reputation might be more helpful. I would argue that a blog platform such as Medium, I've gotten success with LinkedIn as well. I think LinkedIn is super effective. If you're trying to get a job, make posts on LinkedIn. Build up a network. You will get people to add you. Like even just tossing up this mentorship program, I got tons of interest from recruiters and a lot of messages and a lot of ads just from one single post from the mentorship program. Post on LinkedIn if you're trying to get the attention of employers. You'd be surprised at how effective it is. All right. Whew. A lot of questions. You guys have a lot of good questions. Oh, man. Your stream has like a 5-minute delay. No, I'm just really slow in answering questions, Dan. Which careers can you go from 0 to making 80K? Well, you didn't bring up the price. There aren't a lot of careers that you can make that much. I'd call that easy. I think you're focused on what makes things... I would focus more on what makes you happy. I don't know. I think I just don't like the idea. It's like, you know how GoDaddy had those commercials? And they're like, buy a domain for us. We're going to give you tons of popularity and you're going to make tons of money. It's like, you're so full of shit, GoDaddy. Just because you put a hot woman on the ad doesn't mean the company's going to make a lot of money. And so focusing on, ooh, this career is, in 6 months, you can make $80,000 a year. That's not true for 99% of people. It's going to be lower. Just because you've had that experience, you'd be surprised at all the other people that don't. And there are a lot of factors along the way that people need to focus on growing, a lot of habits that they need to focus on improving before they're as marketable as you say. Just learning the skills isn't enough. There are just so many other factors that you're not considering. So when you say, oh, it's going to take 6 months, you make 80K, no. Not really. That's going to happen for very few people. So that's where I'm challenging that idea. Fast ain't easy, exactly, Dex. How cold is it there? It is cold. Ava. It is, I think it was snowing. Do you see the snow in the background? It was snowing earlier. Oh man, I love snow. I love the look of snow. I love winter in Chicago. Yeah, for sure. 6 months of passion can get you much further in web dev than any other career I'm aware of. That's what I mean by easy. I think the way you're describing easy to you is giving a different meaning in the way you're portraying it. I think you're right in what you're saying. I wonder if you had to choose a different word than easy, what would you? I wouldn't even use the word fast. What other word could you use besides easy? Because I think you're giving the right advice. You're delivering it in a slightly different way than you think you're delivering it. But you're right. I mean, it's a career as long as you're passionate in. It can be a very lucrative to an extent career. But I wouldn't go into it for that. I want to learn to make an iPhone apps, but I don't have a Mac. Is it worth buying? That's a really good question. Is a Mac worth buying? Can you make iPhone apps? You can make hybrid apps without... I don't know the platform that's required to build. So what is it? Swift? Can't you use C++ to make an iPhone app? You don't need a Mac for that. Does that sound right? I'm not super familiar with building mobile apps, but I would love your advice, Chad, if you guys know. I would argue you probably don't need a Mac. There are probably tools to help you build that without a Mac. There usually are. yeah, React Native is definitely an option. Ionic, I've heard good things about Ionic. Passion and self-discipline will get you a long way. They absolutely will, in any career, really. If you really think iPhone apps are where you want to go, yes, buy a used Mac. There's a lot of money in writing iPhone apps. Web dev is easier to find a job in, though. Yeah, so you want to build a... So that's the question. Do you really need a Mac to build iPhone apps? You don't need it to build hybrid apps. Like, if you know React, you can build an iPhone app. Never program... What if I never programmed? Is a better way to learn iOS instead of a multi-platform? Pleb, if you want to get into mobile development, I highly encourage native languages. So building a hybrid app probably isn't the way to go if you want to get into mobile development. I would say if you know JavaScript and you want to take a stab at building a mobile app, you know React, let's use React Native. Why not? It gives you a little bit of an exposure on how to build an app and think about the user experience and think about the complications, the interactions of the mobile app. And then if you want to dive into mobile development, I strongly encourage native development for that. But to get exposure in it or make money off of apps, if that's just your goal, you can do a hybrid approach. But I'd argue native versus hybrid if you want to get into mobile development. Pick something and stick with it. Exactly, yeah. Also, if I want to make iPhone apps, I have an iPhone 5, so I need to upgrade my iPhone 2, so I have to buy a Mac, and iPhone lots of money. Yeah. But I used Mac Mini. Oh, that's a good idea, Neva. A Mac Mini is an option. It really is. You don't need a Mac. That's what I figured. Try to run Android emulator on a crappy computer. Well, you might need BlackBerry. You might need a good computer and good hardware, but I'm sure there are complications with that. Yeah. Oh, I've had people just come straight up into my coding stream and say, "You're still using JavaScript? What the hell are you doing? Learn Go," and then they'll leave. So we've gotten a bit of Go advertisement in this stream. Usually ends up with a lot of kappas. A really good PC, so it sucks I would have to buy a Mac and an iPhone. Android doesn't draw my interest at all, and neither does web programs. So consider that iMac Mini is a next choice. Like for Full Stack Academy, I didn't need a Mac, but it was really helpful. All the tools that they taught things in, they took care of all the setup so we could focus on the development only if we had Apple. And so really a cheaper alternative that would have cost me half of what this Mac Pro cost would have been an iMac Mini, and that's what my instructor suggested as well. You don't need a Mac for web development, but it was easier to get through the program with it. But yeah, if Apple draws your interest, an iMac Mini is an option. Lots of good iPhone ideas. Is MacBook Pro my best option? No. No. It's an expensive option. In Xcode, oh, you need it for the compiler in Xcode. Good to know. I think we did a high-end Mac Mini. Hard to work on, but it was a best choice. Just use a VM for a Mac. You probably could, but I wonder how hard that would be to set up. Get on board enough if you want to call me up and have a conversation about this stuff. It might be fun. Dan, I'm probably going to relax. I'm actually probably getting to the tip of my stream right now. But no, I really appreciate all of your advice, so thank you. No. We don't support the Hackintosh here. I gotta clear it from my chat. Shoot. Yeah, don't go the Hackintosh route. Alright. I just gotta clear that from chat. Atmospheric. But yeah, don't go the Hackintosh route. There are fairly cheap alternatives. 600 to 800. I think I'm a bit behind on chat. Sorry. Yeah, we don't support Hackintosh in this chat. If you aren't aware, it's against the licensing agreement. There are people that do it. We don't support stuff like that. It's just bad form. There's nothing wrong with bitching about how expensive Apple is for what they sell, though. We definitely support that. Hey, Leica, how's it going? Where do I work? I work at a healthcare company in Chicago. Easiest way to just jump in and play with it. Oh, cool. That's a cool resource, Neva. How much CPU RAM should I get for a Mac? GoDaddy almost went bankrupt. Wow, I am really behind on chat. All right, there we go. Now I'm catching up a bit. I did that when the customer service channel or company would not respond. I looked up several high people in the company and contacted them directly to solve my problem. That's interesting. Dissidents TV. Discussions. Is it like a thread? Because I actually just had a recent bad experience with Apple support, which eventually got solved, but a lot of crappy conversations along the way. I would love to have had a list at that moment. Someone told me 16 gigabytes of RAM and i5 minimum for a Mac for using UI and Xcode. You don't need 16 gigabytes of RAM. You need much less RAM than you would for Windows. Mac, on a Mac system, utilizes RAM pretty well. i5 minimum, I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation. Bunch of hybrid apps for iOS and Android. You need Xcode to build, and you need a Mac to legally run Xcode. Okay, that's good to know. So yeah, Xcode it is. Or sorry, a Mac it is. What CPU and RAM do I need for the Mac Mini? You know, you're going to get some sluggishness. My instructor, God, I don't know for iOS development. I don't know. That's a good question. He recommended about a $600 to $800 iMac Mini, maybe. Also, if I get a Mac Mini, I would plug into my monitor, get my keyboard and mouse, wouldn't work with it. So why wouldn't it work? You need to get another keyboard and mouse, which is really inconvenient, so maybe a laptop would be better. Why wouldn't it work? Most keyboards will work with your Mac. It should work. It definitely should work. All right, guys. You guys have any last-minute questions for me? Been doing this stream. Happy to answer a few more. Guys, thanks so much for the support. I didn't expect so many people to come to this and ask good questions. Keep in mind, yeah, we don't talk about any pirated software, anything like that. We keep that out of chat. It's just a rule of our community. But like I said, feel free to bitch about how expensive Apple products are. That's completely welcome. But you guys had tons of good questions. I would love for YouTube to have all these questions and like to grow our live stream on YouTube. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully it was helpful to you guys as well. You guys had a lot of good challenging questions that even just challenged my answers, which is perfectly fine, as long as you guys keep it appropriate and friendly. And the goal is to help developers be open to that pushback. I love talking to you guys, and I love getting challenged on this stuff. So, all right, I'm gonna step away, mute my mic just for a sec to give myself a couple minutes. Come back, I'll answer any questions you guys have, and then we'll wrap up the stream. This is I like this stream. I had fun with it. All right, I'll be right back, guys. All right. Alright, let's see. Ketchup. Yeah, I think, pleb, the one thing I'm just cautious about is you don't need to spend a lot of money. I don't think you need to buy a fancy Mac. I can okay, so to give you a little bit of a context, we're issued basically the cheapest MacBook Pro you can get, smallest screen size for all of our development at work. Every developer, every engineer basically gets one. And it's ours. So I basically have two. I have one for work, I have one for personal. And it does everything I need it to do. We have a lot of software that makes it easy to automate everything. A lot running in the background. I mean, I can't see you going wrong with getting the cheapest MacBook Pro. I would argue if your budget is tight, you don't need that. So that's what I'm trying to push. But if your budget you can afford it, then by all means, the cheap. I wouldn't get a fancy MacBook Pro. In fact, I got the old 2000. I didn't get the one with the touch bar. I got the one with the keys raised. I love it. I really do. I didn't need something fancy. It does everything I need it to. And in fact, I've been going back and forth between should I get the new iMac Pro. Like I actually love. Well, I don't love Apple products, but I love the software developed for Apple products, and I'm going back and forth. Should I get the iMac Pro or should I just stick with this? I don't need the iMac Pro, but I'm at a point where I'm like, I've been working really hard. I want to, I don't invest my money in a car. I want a fancy computer, but it's going to give me way more than what I am going to need over the next 3 years. So an iMac Pro, just what I have right now, I'm sure it would be just fine for mobile development. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Our storyboards, I don't know if my keyboard will work. It was made for a PC, so I need 2 keyboards. Okay, maybe worth trying out. Just go to a store and plug it in. I don't know. It most likely would work. Are storyboards good for beginners to use on a Mac, or should new programmers avoid it? So, when people describe storyboards, I think of that's a mobile development thing, right? I don't know. I think of a Scrum board when I think of a storyboard, but a storyboard, isn't that more of a user experience thing, where you're kind of going through the user experience process? What do I think of when I think of storyboard in the user experience process? I think of coming up with the personas for your users and mapping those out. Does that sound right, or am I way off with that? Overpriced machine, but I think you're better off asking on the Mac Reddit what specs could be suitable for your needs. That's probably a good idea, David. Prior to it, I had cheaper Windows laptops that got me plenty of joy in programming hours. Yeah, absolutely. How useful are HackerRank challenges to prepare you for interviews? Incredibly useful for software engineering positions. I used them to prepare me for the interview with Full Stack Academy. I had live streams with it. It was actually a lot of fun. People enjoyed those. It's funny, like I introduce a new topic and then no one shows, and then like I introduce it like 10 more times. People start showing about the time I'm ready to switch topics and like change to like front end development or something like that. And then like I build up. It like takes you a while to build up an audience. That's a Twitch thing, but they're really fun. As long as you enjoy them, they definitely teach you how to get through coding challenges. You might get whiteboard interviews, especially for software engineering positions. HackerRank is really good. I went through a couple of HackerRank programs on stream. Fail TR, thanks for the follow. Code. Damn, I can't think of the website. There's another code challenge website. You guys will probably know what I'm talking about. It's really good for preparing for whiteboard interviews. HackerRank is often used. Like, I actually got the coding tests that I did get from companies were through HackerRank. And so after I got a couple coding tests that I just bombed, I started doing their basic algorithm stuff. It was even after Code Academy. It's so much. But anyways. I started doing all their challenges, and they are helpful. They're helpful it's frustrating because they're helpful for the interviewing process, and you're most likely not going to use them in your software engineering position. You might, but most software engineers, it's like to get hired and then you don't use it for your actual practical work. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that. That's why I really like project-based interviews. That's why most software engineers like project-based interviews, because they're unrealistic. Yeah, HackerRank is a good source for whiteboard interviews. I'm going to spend more time as I was waiting for stuff to load up. Someone just told me don't use storyboards. Oh, alright. Good catch, Dev. Thank you. Someone just told me don't use storyboards and to start from scratch instead and use auto layout. Do you know what that means? I don't know what that means. What are storyboards? I think I'm missing that. Why we... Okay. Here, I'll speed this process up. Thanks, Deb. I don't know why he's talking about making a bomb in the channel. That's over with. Anyways, but yeah. Oh, storyboards is a feature they give you to map out the way your apps looks. Oh, okay. I don't know the difference. That's something I don't know about, honestly. Eventually, I'm gonna explore mobile development, but I would explore mobile development streams. Is it working for me? Is it for you? No, I don't think it is, actually. I typed it manually. I didn't even try it. That's weird. Alright, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the stream. If you like the stream, go ahead and give a follow. If you have further questions or anything like that, we're going to do more streams. If you want to know when we go live, join our Discord. It's completely free. It's in our Twitch panels. And I might do this a week. This might be a weekly thing. If it's a weekly thing, it'll probably be more of an hour stream, if anything. If it's a bi-weekly thing, we can go a little bit longer. We had a lot of questions. You had a lot of good questions. So, yeah, I'm really happy with the results of this stream. I wasn't even sure anyone was going to show. So, guys, thanks so much for the support with this. Join our Discord if you want to be notified when we go live, or even just follow. We are going to be doing this on YouTube and Twitch. I do want to push my YouTube a little bit more and grow it, because I want to start creating tutorials on YouTube. So if you like Twitch, join on Twitch. If you like YouTube, join on YouTube. Either one works. But thanks again for the support. Really appreciate all the good questions. You guys had a lot of great questions, and hopefully they helpful, or all my answers were helpful for you as well. So, guys, have a good night. Good luck on all of your projects, and happy coding, everyone. Take care. Hardly Difficult has rated you with the... What? Oh, man. What's... Alright, fine. No, Hardly, I really appreciate the raid. That timing was just... I guess, so what we're doing, I've been doing a Q&A. Hardly, thanks so much for the raid. So, sum it up real quick. We've been doing a Q&A. We always have a lot of questions for people, like aspiring developers that want to get their first position. And we, sometimes I don't get the bandwidth to be able to answer all those questions because I'm trying to code for you. So I want to try a live QA where any questions you guys had for getting a position, ask away. So that's what this QA was for. We must have had, over 100 questions already. I honestly was expecting this stream for like a half an hour. You guys had tons of good questions. So now that we're getting rated, thanks so much, Hardly. I really appreciate it. If anyone is kind of aiming for that first position, especially web development, please ask any questions you have. Ask away. I kind of just want to give a platform to be able to help you guys as much as I can. Sometimes I can't always answer the questions, but I would argue pretty much all the questions get answered by you guys. If I don't know it, you guys usually do. So thanks again for the raid. I guess I do got to keep it going. How's it going? Alphen, how have you been? I'll stream for a little bit longer. I'm so hungry, but no, I'll keep going. Is React worth learning, or should I focus on JavaScript? Well, how comfortable are you with JavaScript, and what kind of position are you going for? Are you going for a front-end position? So like if you're going for a software engineering position, you want to get a little bit more comfortable, you want to get some familiarity with the front-end framework. I don't know. I think either way, I would argue learning the basics of JavaScript would be helpful, getting comfortable with jQuery. But like, if you're aiming tons of fun, thanks for the follow, welcome. If you're aiming for a front-end position, get comfortable with the basics of JavaScript. Before you dive into React, make sure you understand the concept of what do you want to understand with React. You want to understand. So usually the types of components you're going to create are class components and functional components. And so if you don't understand classes in JavaScript, get comfortable with classes. If you don't understand, like, make sure you understand objects in general, just basic data structures, going through loops, stuff like that. I would argue that I would spend a few months with JavaScript. I don't know where to draw the line of where enough is enough, but what I would argue is if you've learned JavaScript and you want to learn React, React is a good tool to learn. It's going to make you more marketable. Bear Edge, thanks for the follow. If you start getting into React and you don't understand all the ES6 that you have to learn, you don't understand the difference between a functional component and a class component, like these basic structural concepts to you are making it take longer to learn React, I would argue you probably need to get a little bit more comfortable with JavaScript basics. If you know, like it's hard to say. So that's where I'd kind of measure it to see whether you should be diving more into React or learning the basics. But get comfortable with the JavaScript basics. There's a really good book, Eloquent JavaScript. It's a really good book with getting you like. It will get you comfortable with the basics. I think chapters 1 to 5 or 6 before you get on to like the project that you work on where you build this like AI, command line AI, which looks like a really cool project. But before all that, it's going to teach you, it's completely free, it's online, and all those chapters up until that AI project are really good. I think it's like chapters 1 to 6 or 1 to 5. Review that. If you pretty well understand those chapters, I would say you're ready to dive into React. Haggis, thanks for the follow. Welcome. It's a good question, though. I agree. It surpasses all expectations. So many great questions. Yeah, Def. I remember telling you, I'm like, we might not even get anyone to show. But we got a lot of good support for that. JavaScript, I have no idea what WASPM is. Mr. Anderson, what's WASPM? I'm a Java developer with no front-end experience. I'll check it out. Oh, okay. You're a Java developer. So why do you want to get more comfortable with JavaScript? Is it for like personal projects, or is it going to help you provide more value to your clients if you're freelancing or your company? Oh, WebAssembly. What is it worth learning, or is it still too new? I would argue it's too new. WebAssembly. I don't think I really dove into WebAssembly. What is it? New portable size and load time efficient format suitable for compilation of the web. So what's the syntax? What are you learning? Demo of Tanks, a Unity tutorial game which has been exported to WebAssembly. It sounds like it's kind of providing more of an abstract language to be able to build on the web. It depends. Do you want to become a web developer? Probably not. I would argue JavaScript. It looks interesting. It could solve some people's problems, but if you want to grow on the front end, it's hard to escape JavaScript. I would get comfortable with JavaScript. I want to start my own company, so need to move to full stack dev. I gotcha. You don't need to learn React. if you are comfortable with JavaScript or Java, I'm curious to know like what backend framework do you use. So, for example, like if you're into PHP, and you use a framework, the importance is that your code's organized and it's maintainable and it's scalable. And so if you use Laravel to build out your application, do you really need to learn React to build on top of that? No, you don't. Laravel separates the concerns. It might not be the separation that you want, so you might switch into a different framework or whatever, but it separates the concerns enough to build a maintainable and a scalable app. So you don't really need to learn a front-end framework to be able to complete that project and get it out to the client. So where front-end frameworks are really good, and people overuse them because they use them for more than just this reason, they build really good one-page applications where it provides this, this experience of where you're not making multiple post requests and loading multiple pages. It's like everything gets loaded asynchronously and smoothly, and you can take advantage of caching. You can really build an intuitive experience on the front end, but you don't need it. And so everyone's like, oh, I got to learn React to build this blog. I got to learn React to build this landing page. I got to build React to build their business site. Why? Like, you don't. And so React and Angular and all those other frameworks are really good at building one-page applications. So I would argue if you are comfortable with the framework with Java, you understand that a separation of your code and concerns is good, helps apps be scalable, stick with the framework you know. Learn some JavaScript, learn some CSS. Those two things are really good to learn. So that's the route I'd go with it for your situation. You also answer from here. Yeah, ask questions here, Zoom. For enterprise software, I would go all the way with JavaScript plus some framework like Angular, AngularJS, React. It helps to know one framework. It does. For freelancing, I would argue you don't need to learn it. It's going to make you more marketable. It's going to make you be able to build more apps. I'm like beating a dead horse on this. I want to emphasize React isn't needed to build a really good front-end application. Angular isn't needed to build a really good front-end application. Both will make you marketable if you want to get a full-time position, but for freelancing, it takes a lot of time and investment to learn something like that. So that's where I just want to really emphasize, is learning React worth the time investment for what you want to do? I would argue in the beginning when you're building up clients, you want to focus more on getting your reputation out, building your network, getting more comfortable with marketing, and just being an entrepreneur versus learning a whole other framework. So that's my emphasis on that. Let me know if you guys disagree. Hey, Sukul, how's it going? Oh, you should remove that? What should I remove? What do I need to remove now? Focus on JavaScript first. Cheers, man. Yeah, sure. It was a good question. Rigged? Nothing's rigged. We don't have a rigged bot. Our rigged bot got shut down. It was, what was it, Revlobot? First, I thought you looked like Callux. Oh, okay. Looked like someone else? My mod? Oh. Thanks for pointing that out. That's kind of concerning. I trust you, but I'm 99% sure I removed that moderator role like months ago, so it's kind of concerning that Twitch brought that back. Do I use .NET in my applications? I do not. Now we use the Django and Python for all of our stuff at work, and then React for our kind of like our interactive components, and then basic just templating in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for the rest of our site. Then we use a little bit of WordPress for the side project that we're doing, but I use basically Node, a lot of full stack JavaScript stuff. And I want to post a video about it, but I get into this position, I'm 6 months in, and like I look at my future and what I need to learn to grow as a developer, and like before I got this position, it was like there was a small amount that I needed to learn, or I thought I needed to learn. And I get into this position, and as each month goes past, the amount that I need to learn, and like that distance of whenever I'm gonna reach it, of like how much I need to learn, it keeps like going further and further away from me. So the amount that I feel like I need to learn now compared to when I started is it's expanded, and it's overwhelming of everything you can learn. So I try to get more comfortable with JavaScript because I still can grow so much with JavaScript. I tried to do full stack and Node stuff, and I don't think I want to branch off of it for a very long time because I still have so much JavaScript to learn. So, so it's full stack JavaScript for me for my personal projects. Hi, I started 2 weeks ago and I want to try to make a career change. I have no prior coding experience. Do you think it is possible to land a job, and how long would it take? Get Meppy, it's completely possible to land a job. The more you find that you're passionate about web development, the easier it's going to be to push through it. Most people don't get a job because they don't push through it. They give up. They don't handle rejection well. They apply to a bunch of jobs. They fail. They think they're not good enough. It takes time and persistence. So I would argue anywhere from 3 months to two years. Depends on how much time you could put into it. So why do you want to get into it? What really helps to kind of solidify a path and that will help you hit your goals is, why do you want to get into development? Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to do mobile development? Do you want to do design? Do you want to do software engineering? Are you fascinated by AI? Like, figuring that out will definitely help solidify that path. And my camera just keeps freezing, doesn't it? I'm going to deactivate my camera. Oh, wait. No, it's freezing. I'm going to deactivate my camera for just a second. Hold up. Piece of crap. Okay. Hopefully it stops freezing. That's another reason to get an iMac Pro, I guess. It's going to keep freezing. Damn it. Alright, sorry. At least it didn't freeze completely like it did earlier in the stream. Do I need to learn web design, or should I expect a client to hire a web designer? Zoom, I would expect to learn what you learn what you want to, I guess, use to solve the client's problem. So if they want to get an app up, or they want to get a website up, if you really love backend, you just want to focus on backend, do the backend. I would expect that the client expects you to outsource the rest of it, especially when you're just starting off. You don't really have a choice of clients. I think the best way to grow as a freelance developer is to be able to solve someone's problem. And when you're solving half of a problem, that doesn't really solve their problem. So I would argue building up a network of just meeting other graphic designers, maybe in your local area that are in school, that are just growing, that might be willing to take less of a pay. Meeting front-end developers, or if you don't want to deal with the back-end, meeting software engineers that are in computer science programs and paying them a little bit. So outsource your work. I wouldn't expect them to do it. You're there to solve their problem, not half of their problem. You can get away with just, saying, hey, I do logos, or I build APIs. You're definitely going to get less opportunities starting off. If you use a little icon in the chat to remove it, then it may not have worked. That method is a little iffy. That's good to know, Sukul. Using the unmod command works better. Well, now I use the unmod, it should work. That's kind of funny. I think, Topher, you were a mod like almost a year ago, weren't you? And you just pop up, have the mod status. I didn't even recognize it either. I was probably so familiar with you being a mod. I'm like, oh, hey, Topher. Stevie Ocean, how's it going? Welcome. This camera, this piece of crap camera. I froze again. It was working for so long. It was doing so well. Don't die on me. Maybe if I don't move, I keep it like that. All right, I'm not gonna move. It's not gonna freeze. Happens to you as well? It's good to know. What kind of apps must do freelancing? What kind of app systems do you recommend to make as a practice to feel more secure to freelancing? Whatever you want to build. freelance, I mean, with freelancing, I mean, the world is your oyster in a sense. And the type of client you target is whatever you want to target, you know? So what gets excited? I would focus on whatever gets you excited to code. Focus on getting clients that want you to build stuff that you get excited about. Does that make sense? You might have client requests that you're not so excited about, and that's just real life. But the more you can, if I want to build interactive games for the web, or I want to build interactive learning games, I'm going to focus on clients that want that. I'm going to be able to focus on growing in those platforms and the languages that I need to get those clients. So you have a little bit of freedom, but I would focus on what you enjoy and try to gain the clients. I think you're going to be more successful in gaining clients by learning what you enjoy. Does that make sense? I'm a high school senior going to college, majoring in computer science. Any tips? Should I do freelancing work while I have free time? 100%, yes. Do it free time. Yes. That computer science degree will not get you a development position, most likely. So just a little example. If you want to become a developer. So, well, first of all, you're a high school senior going to college majoring in computer science. If you want to become a developer, build applications on the side. I think computer science teach really good fundamentals. I don't think they teach you everything. It's just like when I was going for psychology, I wanted to do counseling. And when I got out, I started applying for a bunch of counseling positions and management positions, in fact. But I had no internship experience. I had very little practical experience, and I just went off of my education. And so at Full Stack Academy, Strand, thanks for the follow. Welcome. At Full Stack Academy, we had a bunch of brilliant people that came in. And they did a good job of weeding out the people that probably weren't going to be successful, to put it bluntly. At least in that program. At that time with that mindset. So about half of our class were computer science majors. Very, very smart people. Way smarter than me in certain areas. And they struggled getting jobs as developers because they went through computer science programs that taught them a bunch of fundamentals but not a lot of practical skills. They didn't teach them, didn't really dive into the fundamentals enough of the languages they needed to know to get a development position. So now they were really leaning more towards a boot camp that taught them more practical on the job ready skills. So my argument is a computer science degree is a great idea. Supplement it in your spare time, like you mentioned, with freelance projects. That's huge. But if it's not freelance projects, maybe personal projects, trying to get a user base, or just creating a blog and talking about what you're learning, stuff like that. Supplement. Yeah, you have the right mindset to supplement with your spare time. That'll definitely make you a lot more hireable. Well, Don the developer, you're always learning. Yeah, yeah, that's true. As you learn JavaScript and Node itself, you will always be learning forever. That's true. Yep. I'm always learning. I know with me, I slightly understand some JavaScript, but I still need to learn some of the front-end functions. Yeah, no, you're definitely always learning. You're always learning. You gotta really love that path, and you have to love the idea of that if you want to be successful in this career. I really, really believe that you have to love learning it, not just learn enough to finally get a job. Because you're most likely not going to get a job because employers are going to see through that, and you're not going to deliver that passion they're looking for. It's like, AI sounds something fun. It does, doesn't it, Demon? I've really wanted to look more into it. I have so much on my plate. It's there. If you want to learn something, I think it's a great idea to maintain a list of things that you want to learn. Z-Pro, thanks for the follow. Welcome. I think it's a great idea to maintain a list of things you do want to learn and prioritize them. Have that giant list. Just don't bounce around to 1,000 different ideas. Prioritize them. Say, okay, love this, but I really should finish this tutorial at least and build this app. Let's get this done, then dive into it. You'll find that your desires and what you want to learn changes over time. And so when you're constantly flipping through like all these different things to learn, you're probably not growing in the most effective way. cool. Thanks for the recommendation. By Kyle Simpson. You don't know JavaScript? Heard about that. I'm sure that's good. I've not read it, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. Do you have a GitHub? Yeah, Quap, I do. GitHub. It's not in the panels, is it? It's github.com/Don the Developer. I should put it in the panels. Outsourcing is a great skill to learn, and it also, yes, teaches you networking, absolutely. Networking would not just help you with other clients, but you can also help a growing developer out too, which is always good. Man, you're always growing, Demon. I used a Django a lot. I think you meant to say as well at work. Or a lot of well at work. Do you think that it's too much for using the single page applications where Django just returns I'm laughing because Pandora, Django doesn't work well with one page applications, and I'm sure you started to encounter that. It depends on what you want to build. So let me give you an example. We have everything's custom. Built everything custom. So our platform, we basically build a content management system, and we have an e-commerce section. So we have an intake, and we have one piece of our intake that's interactive, and it's a very data-driven component in our intake. And the React app for that is huge. It's huge for what it does. It's like one mini feature in a website, but it does so much with the data at that point of the intake. So eventually I want to convert the entire intake, because we're literally calling new pages through a form. We're making a post request through a form, and so it's creating a really poor user experience by getting we have a multi-step process in our intake where we can create this really neat, intuitive, user-friendly interaction throughout the entire intake. And instead, we set it up it was set up the Django way a long time ago. So this piece of Django is worth converting to a one-page component because it's meant for that. Would I convert all the front end to Django? Absolutely not. We're a very SEO-driven company. We make tons of money by optimizing for SEO, and one-page applications just aren't at that level to be able to do that. Google's algorithm starts to account for JavaScript, but not every search engine does. And even Google's algorithm right now is limited to what it's ranking for and the amount of renders it accepts before it basically delivers that information to Google. So should you? It depends on what you're trying to build. If you're trying to build an interactive component, yeah, it's worth the trouble. And I know how much trouble that can be. If you're just building a landing page, or you're building something that just Django does well currently, you don't need to. So you really got to challenge that idea. But I know how much of a pain in the butt it is. Should I start streaming my projects on Twitch? Haggis, that's how I started. I 100% say yes. See if you enjoy it. Some days are going to be lonely. Some days are you're going to get no viewers, and you might even build up an audience, and all of a sudden you get a day where no one shows up. You're just like, did I do something wrong? But don't. What I'm saying is ignore all that and just build projects and have fun with it. It took me a long time to build up a small audience, but it also got me the position that I have right now. So I think that's a great idea. Do you know Pluralsight? For me, is it one of the best coding courses? I've had mixed experiences with Pluralsight. So Pluralsight has very professional, well thought out courses that are meant for an online learning platform. And it also has people charging you for a lecture that was videotaped with a crappy camera and mic sitting in the back of the classroom where you don't hear any of the questions. And you only hear the speaker's answers. And I'm sure many of you have dealt with that at online conferences where people will ask the question, they're not given the mic, so hear this, and then you hear the answer that is it gives you no context to the question. So it's kind of a hit or a miss with Pluralsight. So it can have really good courses, and there are really good courses I would recommend. It can also be a complete waste of money. So it's a hit or a miss, but yeah, that's kind of my feedback with Pluralsight. Maybe you guys have had a different experience. Maybe you guys had fascinating courses, or you guys just hated it. What do you guys think of Pluralsight? Wit AI is a free NLP ML you can train via its REST API if you want to play around with AI. That's a really cool project, Atos. Wit AI, I gotta remember that. I've used that. Pluralsight, so you've had a good experience with that? Is .NET Core Web API good with... I have no idea if it's good with React.js. I've never used it. So that's a good question. Yeah, I did Django. I don't know. I've had my quirks with the Django. It's I'm sure those of you that dive into hundreds of thousands of lines of a code base, try convincing your project managers and higher ups business to spend the engineer resources to convert everything to a new framework. See how that goes for you. Sometimes you just gotta make the best with what you have. It's not a bad platform. I think we're still using Backbone, which is pretty outdated. I don't know. There are good parts of the code base I love working on, and there are parts that I do not like working on. I think that's the best way to describe it. SEO is the hardest thing to learn. I feel the rules keep changing. They do keep changing. I think building out good content that matches, understanding user experience and who your users are, and building out good content usually gets you 80% of the way there with SEO. And so I don't think enough people decide the content before they start coding out the layout or designing it and then like coding it out. I think developers in general jump the gun and they don't really take user experience seriously. But if you start focusing on user experience, you realize you are really at least 80% of the way there with SEO when you just come up with good content that is delivered to your users and it gives your users what you want, or what they want. What they need. What they want is something different. Thank you very much for the response. Got way more than I expected. Sure, Wonders. Happy to help. That's what I do. I'll elaborate for 30 minutes and go to the next question. But yeah, I'm glad you found it helpful. All right. I'm happy to answer. So anyone still on the channel? Like I said, I was expecting to do a half-an-hour stream on YouTube, which we got one viewer, a lot of good questions, and then we got tons of viewers for Twitch. I didn't expect this many, so thanks for the support. I need a 5-minute break. I'll give you guys a chance to ask any questions you have. So really, this Q&A is about just giving you guys a chance to ask, not only me as a developer, but like the rest of the chat. You guys are providing a lot of good advice. If you're stuck, what should you learn? A lot of the questions that this is probably focused on is, how do I grow as a developer? How do I get a job? How do I get into freelancing? What do I learn? Talking about the frameworks to learn, because there's just so much to learn, and it can really be easily overwhelming. So that's basically what this QA is about, to try to provide a few more answers to kind of help you keep your sanity in this field. So, all right, give me 5 minutes. I will be right back. Alright, I'm back. Damn, I feel a lot better. Talking. I think I talked more in this stream than any other stream. My jaw, it's all sore. No, I feel a lot better. I just had to get a little bit of food in me. Well, it works well. .NET Core and React.js. That's good to know. Is Java EJB? What's EJB? I don't know what that is. I play ladder. I have no idea what EJB is. Does it give you an uptime, Demon? Alright, so basically, what sprouted this live stream anyways was I'm starting up a meetup in Chicago. If you're in Chicago, by the way, if you live in Chicago, feel free to send me a message, but I'm starting a meetup, basically a mentorship program, and so it can be a little bit discouraging getting that first position, and so I want to start up a mentorship program and just see if people would be interested in me saying, hey, anyone that wants, some advice from a experienced developer, or even just like someone in the industry, let me know. Happy to give my free time to do it. And so the idea was to kind of just like go to a cafe and work on my project, and then anyone that wanted to could come in, join me, introduce me to the project, what they're building, some of the challenges that they're having with having a job, or we could just kind of have a conversation. So that was the idea behind the meetup. I posted the idea. I got a lot of good feedback from it. Got a lot more interest than I expected. I was expecting like maybe one person to send me a message or even none, and got a lot more than that. So we're going to do the meetup probably after Thanksgiving. And I kind of just wanted to, I know online we've been doing this live coding, but it's kind of this hybrid of me talking to you guys, answering your questions, or either coding. And so half the people want me to keep coding and stop talking, half the people want me to stop coding and talk more. So it's this like weird hybrid that I don't know. I didn't really feel like it was solving anyone's problem. So I want to try this. I want to try a Q&A because Devin Bowser and I have talked about a mentorship program. I know I'm going to be launching it in Chicago. Going to give that a try, and I would like to create an online form of that as well, eventually connect them together. I think it'd be a cool opportunity. And it's a low-risk thing. Doesn't take a lot of a time investment. And so you'll probably see a few more of these QAs as well. If you want to bring your questions, you want even website reviews. We usually do a lot of website reviews on here. But yeah, that's where this QA sprouted. So if you guys have any questions, you're trying to get that position, let me know. I'm going to answer it the best I can, but usually if I don't, you guys have opinions and you help each other out. So 3-hour streams. Yeah, I was expecting to have a half an hour stream. How hard do you think it would be to find an Angular job with average to above average experience? Not hard at all. Adventurously in Chicago, not hard at all. I'm curious to see whether knowing Angular 1 or Angular 2 or 4 or whatever it calls itself now would make you more marketable. Because I don't know how many people are still stuck on Angular 1 and they just don't have the resource to convert over yet, or for whatever reason. It takes a lot of engineering time and money to convert your framework. That should make you very marketable. There's no commands, sadly, but I can do it via, okay, BTTV, that's good to know. I know. You can probably do it with like a / I'm like losing my voice. Nice, I would like to join, but I'm from Brazil. Well, if you're in Chicago, we'd like to have you, but we are going to be creating, so I'm diving into this user experience course now and trying to learn more about it at work as well. Like I said, our content creator won this contest and got a shit ton of UX design books, and I'm like, half an hour a day, I just go over to the desk and I read. And so I'm trying to learn as much as I can about UX stuff. I'm picking our designer's brain, trying to learn more about design, and I know she's overworked, and I try to limit my questions, but I always have tons. But I haven't pushed her away yet, so I'm going to keep bugging her and learning. So I'm learning more about UX, and probably the first project is going to be a landing page for the mentorship program. Dev and I have 80% planned out. It's pretty simple. We used to do like one-on-ones, and it'd just be like 30 minutes a week. I would probably say about 30 minutes every 2 weeks is what I could dedicate. I know Dev wanted to put a little time into that, but that's just a touch base. Get people with complementary skills to work on a project. We're probably going to keep the repository localized to us because we don't want either one of them to like get mad at each. Sometimes disputes happen, and I don't want one person to run off with the project. So that way we just get like a project that stays live all the time, that's going to be available to their employer, and then maybe get a front-end and back-end developer to work together, build a really cool project that's going to make them both have a better chance of getting a position. So be able to introduce working on teams if they haven't really gone through the agile process yet, or worked with the a basic Scrum board, getting them used to that. Kind of just a mentorship mentorship program that helps introduce a lot of that growth that companies kind of want, but you really don't get it until you work on the job. So we'll do some QAs to kind of be a part of that. But that's where I'm learning my UX. You're going to see a landing page go up with that probably in the next couple months. But that's my whole plan for the next few months. I'm really excited to see how the in-person meetups go. I've never hosted a meetup before. I've hosted like a club. It was like a kickboxing club, and it was in the basement of like I don't know. Like it was kind of grungy, but it was fun. But that's the only thing I really hosted close to a meetup. So I want to see how it goes. I'm really excited. Are you going to Starbucks? I might go to Starbucks. Problem is I love Starbucks, and I would love to go to a cafe. I just don't want to buy coffee. I'm trying to get away from coffee. So we're probably my boss even said it's good form. I shouldn't just host a meetup and invite everyone to just not order anything. So might be something with like light snacks. We'll see. I gotta explore that bit a bit. Stram, what language should I learn first? Best PHP framework for a bulldog? What? A Buildong website? I don't know what that is. Sorry, try to describe a little bit more of what you're building, but it depends on what you want to build, and then I can answer your question. That seems like a great idea for the future. Good. Glad to hear it, Demon. Yeah, it's something that we can throw up. We're not building a platform for it. I'm building a landing page, so it's low investment, low risk, and we're just building a landing page. I'll try to market it as well, hoping word of mouth really gets it out there. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I basically have a lot of free tools already planned out that's going to let us do this. So we don't have to put a lot of development time into it. Haggis, you should start using Marinara timer for when to stop coding and answer questions. Yeah, I'm sure it's something. It's just a timer, right? I would rather just build tutorials. I'd rather separate that. I'd rather build tutorials and talk about it and teach people. And I would rather do a QA live session where I get to answer tons of questions. It's the best of both worlds separated, because trying to do both of those, I don't think it goes well on Twitch. And I think very few developers on Twitch gain a very they're very successful in growing their community by doing that. I would argue I've just meeting more people, seeing YouTubers like kind of launch into their careers and stuff like that. I feel like this hybrid of live coding and answering questions, it kind of works, but Twitch doesn't really give the audience and creative to make other platforms, to not consider other platforms and other ways of doing it. I don't know if that makes sense, but I've tried live coding and questions. I'm not convinced it's for me at the moment. So I'm going to split it. I'm going to do tutorials, separate that, and then do live stuff. Landing page design hype. Ah, yeah, Demon, I'm actually excited to do that as well. I'd love to live stream the landing page design stuff. That's something I'm learning. I want to get better with it. And the developer is still live. Hope. Yeah, Yeah, I'm still live. Refresh. You can't hear me say refresh, but tell them to refresh. Starbucks does have tea, really? Oh, interesting. What do you think of Go? I've never used it. Neva. I think it's very fresh. Learn it if you want to. I would not learn Go breaking into this industry just yet. I would not, in good faith, guarantee you that's a good investment of your time. Just because it's still pretty new. I think there are other, like if you're, it's, I have this this mindset, like you become a developer, then you learn to build whatever you want to build, right? So you become a developer, you can learn other languages a little bit easier. So you find some languages that help you build cool, fun projects. Those languages usually should have been around for a long time. They usually should be in a lot of your job postings. I don't know how many job postings there are for Go, and that's why I'd be hesitant to learn it when you want to break into the industry. Now, if you have the freedom of just learning something cool to build something cool, and that's your goal, learn Go. It could, I would argue, it'd probably give you higher pay. You'd be a little bit more specialized. It'd be harder to get a position until time has passed for it to become more, I guess, widely used in companies. But I hear great things about it. I have our, for example, our tech manager, who's my boss's boss even. He loves Go. He's learning tons of stuff on Go, and he has. I've never heard bad things about Go. I've always heard good things. It's just kind of something newer, and you have to have the right reasons for learning it, I think. Strand PT was asking for the best PHP framework for building sites. He just made a typo and... Oh, thanks, Ponders. Okay, so it depends... Describe best. I hate those words. I hate those. So my thought when I hear what's the best PHP framework is, how comfortable are you with the MVC model? Have you built an application where you start separating concerns like that? If you've never worked with the framework before, for me, learning MVC was hard, and I didn't catch it I didn't learn it the right way, and I didn't retain it, and so I got discouraged, and I just went about learning other things. So Laravel is a really good framework to learn. I would recommend Laravel, but it's a little bit more complicated. That's what I started out with. If you're first learning an MVC framework, I would recommend CodeIgniter. CodeIgniter for me was easier to learn because even the file structure itself, the conventions encourage you to title things that represent the concerns that the files represent. Does that make sense? So I think if you're learning your first framework, I think CodeIgniter is a good path. If it's not your first framework, you understand the MVC model, I think Laravel is a good bet. Now, I'm not a PHP developer. There might be other PHP developers that know the industry a little bit more as well. So take what I say with a grain of salt with that. But if you're learning a framework, which is good, to create an organized code architecture, try CodeIgniter. See how it works for you. Thanks for clarifying that, Perders. How long do you work a day as a web developer? So I have a really nice work-life balance. That's one thing I love about my job. And so I work 8 hours a day. It's an 8-hour day, hour lunch, so minus an hour, so that's 7 hours. And then meetings. I would argue I work about I code about an average of 5 hours a day. And there are days that I code less. And there are days that I code less and less. So a rough estimation, I would argue I have about 24 hours in a sprint, which is in 2 weeks to code. So I have about 80 hours, code about 24. Does that sound right? No, that doesn't sound right. 24 hours in a week, sorry. Throwing myself off. So I would argue I have about 24 hours a week that I actually code at my job. The rest is meetings, planning, and I'm considering like refactoring coding as well, not just building features. So then code reviews, demos, like you just constant interruptions. There's like context switching that always throws me off, and sometimes I get this like 45-minute window to start on a feature, and then I gotta go to an hour-long meeting, and it's really awkward to get started. So that's maybe an opportunity I take to go over and learn a bunch of UX stuff with the books. But I probably code about 24 hours a week, work a 40-hour week, and when I need a day just to work from home, and I want to work from home, I work from home. It's nice. I don't know. It's my job definitely gives me a good work-life balance. Hopefully that answered your question. But yeah, about 40 hours a week, 24 hours coding. Hi man, can you do a guide in programming languages? Like what specifically with programming languages? Ashwish, but welcome. Down the developer first framework. Thanks for the answer. Sure. Yeah, happy to answer it. So yeah, we talked about CodeIgniter being easy. Let me know your experience with it, because if it's too hard or too easy for you, I might look into recommending something else for someone else. So absolutely. So anyone that's new to the channel, this QA is just about you're an aspiring developer, you want to get a position. Just giving you an opportunity to talk to someone with industry experience, and I don't have all the answers, but a lot of people in chat usually supplement them really well. So feel free to ask any questions you have. But what I'd like to do, feel free to, if you want to know when we go live next, give me a follow. We have a Discord channel. Some people even use our Discord channel to just post their projects and get feedback on them, stuff like that. We give a lot of feedback, or if they're really stuck with a bug, they just can't figure something in the code out, I usually post it in our development section. It's completely free to join our Discord. The link is actually in our Twitch panels as well. Alright, yeah, and I did get your messages, Deb, so thanks for posting them. So yeah, do you guys have any more questions? I'm like out of breath. You guys asked so many good questions. Yeah, ask your questions. Smash the button. So I'm basically, the way I'm going to run these live QAs, I'm going to try it again. Might not be next Saturday, but it'll definitely be the following, just because it's Thanksgiving. So I got to consider that. But oh, they did a little bit with their dashboard, I noticed. Okay. Cool. Twitch is improving with their interface. Okay, yeah, so ask any lasting questions. I'll go ahead and last questions. I can't talk. I'm tired. I need to get some real food in me. But if you have any last questions, let me know. Happy to answer them. But we're going to do these Q&As a little bit more often. I just want to see if people are interested in it. It'll usually be on Saturday. Boers Jr., thanks for the follow. But yeah, thanks for all the great questions, everyone. Guys, I hope you have a great weekend. I don't always get back to Whispers right away. Usually your best bet to ask me really and get thorough answers are in these streams. So these QAs are really good opportunities. If you have questions, write them down, bring them to the stream. So guys, thanks everyone. Really had fun with this stream. I will see you guys. At least it'll be not next Saturday, but the following Saturday at 4 p.m. Central Time. That's kind of our standard time. We'll try another QA. And if you want to see tutorials on YouTube, send me feedback with that. So, thanks, guys. Sure thing, stream. Thanks for the questions. All right, let's go ahead and give someone a host. Let's see who's online. It's going to be a creative stream. Who do we host? Call location. Who is this? Oh, he's such a good streamer. All right, he's really good. He was working on a JavaScript bot. He actually built. Okay, so his name is Callow Creation. I don't know if you guys have seen him. He built a bot in which you would basically talk all of your commands and it would issue them. So, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and give him a host. He's really humble too. Alright guys, sorry, yeah, I'm gonna end the questions here, but feel free to bring your questions in the next stream. Thanks everyone. Alright, good luck on all of your projects and happy coding. See ya.